Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Good evening, everybody. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Planning Board meeting of November 12th, 2024. I hereby announce that this meeting is being held in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Open Public Meeting Act. Proper notice of meeting dates has been given to the Morris Newsbee and the Morris County Daily Record and posted on the bulletin board in Borough Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Roll call, please.
Mr. Woronowict?
Present.
Mr. Battagliese?
Present.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Spicka? Present. Mrs. Potkaleski?
Here.
Mr. Kelly? Mr. Bessel?
Here.
Mayor Carr?
Present.
And Mr. Brewster?
Present.
Okay, are there any comments from the public to speak on matters that are not on the agenda tonight?
Daniel Conway, 3 Greenwood Road, Morris Plains, New Jersey. I wanted to ask about the meetings that are forthcoming. There's a meeting scheduled, I guess, for a week from today. Is that accurate?
No, Monday.
6 days. 6 days from today. Is that meeting specifically for the current set of applications that are on the agenda?
It's a regular planning board meeting. Anything that happens to be on the agenda.
Why do we have 2 meetings in 1 month?
We can have as many meetings as we want in a month, okay? We have other matters to consider.
Okay, so will those be prioritized in that meeting? Will the other matters that are not on the agenda tonight be prioritized in next week's meeting?
We'll have to wait and see what's on the agenda. Okay, you'll get the agenda, it'll be out, in a day or two.
How many months in this year have we had multiple meetings?
I think this is the first time.
This is the first one this
We've
year.
had multiple meetings, and some months we have no meetings.
The question was how many months this
Yeah,
year?
just if you can raise your microphone maybe a little bit. I'll turn it
Oh, I don't
on.
want to mess with this. How many months, the question was how many months this year have we had multiple meetings? And the answer,
I don't believe we've had multiple meetings in any other month, but there are months when we have no meetings. It depends on what's on the agenda, okay?
how are the meetings determined? Who decides?
The planning board decides.
As a whole?
Generally with, we consult with the applicants, and our professionals.
Are there meetings to those consultations?
Excuse me?
Is there a meeting or are there minutes to those consultations?
No, there's no minutes to them. They're usually telephone calls.
So telephone calls of the significant portion of the planning board to discuss when to have meetings, whether with or without the applicant, have occurred.
You just created a sentence from something that didn't occur. She did not say that. Please don't try to create something that was a meeting with significant members of people. That's not what she said. So when you say, so this happens, please don't do that. If you have a question, do it, but don't say so as if that was what was said.
Respectfully, there was an inflection. And the inflection was a question, which is, there were members of the planning board on a call together. This is a question.
That is not correct, okay?
So could you clarify your answer for me, please, then?
One second. The chair can continue with the give and take to the extent you want. Typically, this is for comments. If it's just going to be back and forth, we're not going to make progress, but if you want to go the back and forth, we can.
My question, is there a meeting to determine when the next meeting will be? Okay, so how many people are involved in it? Is it something that should be made public?
No,
There's nothing that should be made public.
no, not to schedule a meeting, not at all.
So in your one of your comments, and this is a question, you said it could be consultation with the applicants. What, did that happen here?
No.
So the applicant wasn't involved in any decision to have another meeting 6 days later. Just want to confirm that.
Okay.
It's a question.
Yeah. I don't know the specifics of it, but I do know two answers. So the municipal land use law, additional meetings can be scheduled by the chair, typically in consultation with one or two other members. That's typically how it can be done. The next week is the New Jersey League of Municipalities, where all the municipalities in New Jersey go down to Atlantic City. And because there's one or two other applications that are coming down the road, and many people on this board were going to be leaving early, if anything, on next Monday, the 18th, there was a consideration to have an additional meeting. So this application could move along because we have others. The board has other ones to consider. So that additional meeting was scheduled. The other one wasn't canceled, as it turns out, because of significant public interest. This has gone on a lengthy amount of time. There is always a tension with when there is significant, and don't grab on the word tension. There's a significant issues to balance when there's lots of interest, because the municipal land use law sets time periods by which a board must act. If it does not act, an applicant can ask that it act. If it doesn't, then there's an automatic approval. Because it's kind of geared, the municipal land use law is geared that if an applicant is going to invest money, they have a right to move along their time periods to act. So when there are things that slow the otherwise normal process down, like a lot of public interest, which is a great thing, it's not uncommon to have an additional meeting or two. That's really kind of the thought process, that at least tangentially that I've seen. I think that's what it is what it is.
Could I ask that, what is that time limit?
45 days.
Now, that's for completeness, 90 days for the answer that can be extended at times. Can't demand that it be extended, but they're each, for the size of the site plan, I don't have it in front of me, but the size of the site plan, what's being asked for, has some slightly different variations. Typically, the normal one is 90 days.
So just because I'm trying to understand.
Just if I may add too, there was a conflict where our traffic engineer could not make the 18th meeting. We scheduled the 12th meeting because we knew he could not make that meeting. His plans have changed. Now he's available both on the 18th. So there was an initial conflict there as well. Many factors.
So again, because I'm not generally involved in these things, my question is, when there is significant public interest, is there a limit to how often or how long presentations, testimony, and public comment is cut off? At what time is it cut off? How many days? How many months?
Your question presupposes that there's a list of rules that says that this is the amount of time. Everything courts do say it has to be reasonable. So every situation is different. There are some courts will say, no, you should have gone till 3 a.m, and the applicant has the right to get an answer. You might get another judge who will say no. So you have to act reasonable every time. There's not a Bible that says it's 17 minutes per. That doesn't exist. That presupposition of your question doesn't exist.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Lisa Schroeder, 97 Maple Avenue. I understand there's 3 planning board positions with terms that expire at the end of this year.
That's not something that you would bring up at this meeting. That would go to the borough.
I was just seeking an explanation for how residents could apply to become a planning board member.
I believe it's on the website, but it's not a matter for us to discuss here. no one else, we will close that portion of the meeting. Next, we have correspondence and bills. Kathy, please.
Yes, I move that we approve the following purchase orders. The first one is number 20242098, Maryann Phillips, Price and Breigel for $2,026.25. The next one is purchase order number 20242058 to Michelle Quick for $56. And the next one is purchase order number 20242097 for legal services to Marizidi Falcone LLP for $1,155. And the next one also purchase order 20242056 again to Marizidi Falcone LLP for legal services, a retainer, $507.50. That's all I have.
We have a second?
Second. Second,
Okay. Roll call, please, Karen.
Mr. Woronowict,
Yes.
Mr. Battagliese,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Stecker,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mr. Bezel,
Yes.
Mayor Carr,
Yes.
Frank Russo.
Yes.
Karen, do we have any correspondence? Thank you. Okay, next is approval of the minutes. The minutes are the transcript of the last meeting. Could we have a motion to approve the transcript of the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I didn't get who was the first. Who approved?
So moved.
Who? I got the mayor second, but I.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Minor site plan committee, do we have a report? John? No? Master plan review committee, Frank?
Yes, there's a report. As I spoke last meeting, the council had asked us for a recommendation on a zone change at 300 Tabor Road, which is the island at the end of 53 and Route 10 there, and Tabor Road. It's surrounded by roads. To change it from the R2 residential to C1 highway commercial. It's approximately 2.2 acres. The committee, which is myself, Ron Kelly, Maryann Stecker, and Sue McCluskey, and our engineer, Leon Hall, and our planner, Liz Leheny. The applicant was there with their attorney, Rosemary Doherty, and their planner, and their engineer, and the owner. And we just, the owner is Nick Raffaello, Rosemary Doherty is their attorney, Matt Kurtzen is their engineer, and Alex Doherty is their planner. We discussed it, and I think all of us, in fact, I think all of us felt that it should be considered for a zone change. When you go back R2 there, that is the only remnant that is left from the R2 zone. Years ago, the spur of Route 24 was going to come through there, and the number of homes in the area were taken by the state and removed, but the project was abandoned, and some of the other properties became commercial properties. So we are all recommending to the full planning board to pass a resolution to request the council to consider changing the zones. Liz Leheny you have all a report from her in front of you, and you all have resolutions in front of you, which hopefully will send it to the council. They can do either pass it or not, consider it or not, and we'll see what happens. Anybody on the planning board have any questions on that? So if the attorney would read the resolution.
For those of you in the public, you're learning one of the traditions of this board is that I read the resolutions in their entirety, so you get to hear this one. Resolution pursuant to municipal land use law in support of requested zone change of block 101.01, lot 2.01, from R2 to C1. Whereas the governing body of the Borough of Morris Plains has adopted by ordinance a procedure for the owners of property located within the borough to request a change of the zoning of applicable property, and whereas 300 Tabor LLC owner owns property located at 300 Tabor Road, designated as block 101.01, lot 2.01 property, and whereas owner has submitted a request for zone change of the property from R2 to C1, and whereas the board has reviewed the request, supporting documentation, and is familiar with the property, and whereas the property is constrained with certain physical limitations and right-of-way constraints, which make it difficult to develop the property in conformance with the R2 zone standards, and whereas the property is adjacent to the C1 zone and could more easily be developed pursuant to the C1 standards in a manner consistent with the adjacent C1 zone and in a manner beneficial to the borough. And whereas a change in zoning from R2 to C1 for the property would promote several purposes of zoning as set forth in the municipal land use law, NJSA 40:55D-1 et sec. And whereas the board has reviewed the request and seeks to recommend such zone change to the governing body of the Borough of Morris Plains. Now therefore be it resolved by the Planning Board of the Borough of Morris Plains in the County of Morris and State of New Jersey on this 12th day of November 2024 as follows. 1. Following a review of the request for zone change for block 101.01, lot 2.01, and comments of the Borough Planner at the meeting, the Planning Board finds and determines that said request for zone change would promote purposes of zoning and benefit the borough, and recommends that the borough favorably consider the requested zone change of zone. 2. This resolution shall constitute the report and recommendation of the Planning Board, and the Board Secretary is directed to deliver a certified copy hereof to the Borough Clerk within 5 days of the date hereof. 3. This resolution shall take effect as provided by law.
I'll move that resolution.
I didn't hear you, Frank. What?
I'll move the resolution.
I'll second it.
Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Woronowict?
Yes.
Mr. Battagliese?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Stecker?
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Bezel?
Yes.
Mayor Carr?
Yes.
And Mr. Gruson?
Yes, and I remind everyone that if the council considers this, they would have to introduce an ordinance and subsequently have a public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Is there any new business? Old business? Okay, we'll start with the application, PB 1-24, McDonald's USA. What we're gonna do is we're going to probably go till around 9 o'clock, take a little break, and we'll see where we are at about 10:30, and we'll see what happens at that time. So, Mr. Vitolo?
Actually, just before we start, where we ended last last meeting, was that there were a few follow-up questions on the 2 exhibits from the engineer. Everybody that asked questions, you're only supposed to ask once, so please don't come again. You're gonna have a chance. Their next witness is the traffic engineer, which I'm gonna presume will be lots of questions. But if anybody who didn't have a question, follow-up exhibits of the engineer, you can ask those. If there are none, then it would be handed off once again to the applicant for the next witness, but that's where they are.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman. I guess I would ask the public, are there any other follow-up questions for Mr. Duarte? Because we would like to call our traffic expert now to get him started. Okay, and this goes to the 2 exhibits that were on the screen. Okay.
Battagliese, Battagliese, 2 Cutler Road. So I had started to ask some questions the last time about the parking lot spacing, and Mr. Vitolo asked that I reserve those for after your update, so that's what I'm trying to focus on here. So I wanted to go back with the delivery truck. You mentioned would be scheduled during off-peak hours between the rushes of breakfast and lunch and dinner. So the question I have is, what happens when the delivery truck is late due to traffic or other delays? Because in your update, you were showing where the truck would park. Is there a safety concern or lack of space issue if the parking lot, if the truck arrives during peak hours, if it's delayed in traffic or whatever, might cause it to be delayed?
No concern if there's a delay. As I noted last time, the site can still be circulated if there's a delivery truck on site.
Okay, can you show, I don't know if you can bring the map up, but if the parking is filled, because I recall that you were utilizing parking spaces for the truck?
No. So this is again exhibit A6, what I had up on the screen last meeting. So the delivery truck remains within the circulation aisles at all times.
In the middle there, isn't that where the truck you said could park along the back spaces there? So if those spaces were occupied during peak hours,
This is I stated that the truck would be located in front of the trash corral within the drive aisle, and it would block the 3 spaces closest to the trash corral. So if there was cars parked there, they would be temporarily blocked while the delivery truck is on site.
okay.
Can we have a minute, please? I hate to do this to you again, but we do have a new exhibit that shows where it's parked. Our traffic expert's gonna be showing that.
Okay.
All right, and he's gonna walk you through.
I should reserve all these questions
Yeah,
to deal with.
yeah, yes.
And does that also go into, so anything related to the space of the lot is now on the traffic?
No, but that exhibit showing where the truck is coming in, where it's going to park, that is a new exhibit that we've created, and that's gonna be handled by Mr. Peregoy.
Okay, so if I have questions about buses, for instance, that weren't answered the last time, would that also be the traffic engineer?
Yes.
Okay. Will the delivery truck, when it's parked there, be idling due to refrigerated shipment on board?
No, it will not be doing
Okay. All right, then I just have one other question. It's a follow-up to a question that I asked the last time that you modified your answer to when another resident came up afterwards. So, and this dealt with the question around whether you designed McDonald's in a downtown immediately adjacent to residences, and you gave the example of Fairlawn initially, and then later modified that to be Bayonne on Broadway. But when I look at Bayonne on Broadway, it appears there's not any single family homes in the area, and the only residences are apartments over the commercial shops in a dense urban center that surrounds all sides of the McDonald's. So, as that also does not appear to be comparable to Morris Plains situation, do you have an example that you designed that is truly comparable with our downtown and immediate surrounding residential area?
First, there are single-family homes in the immediate area of the Bayonne site. That would be the most downtown design we have, for sure. We also worked on the 63rd Street Bayonne site, which has residential behind it.
I mean, when you look at the Google Maps and follow along, there are no
directly across the street, they're single family homes, they're multi-story, but they are single family.
Okay, so that's still what you're using as a representative example. Okay, thank you.
Kamil Woronowict. Kamil Woronowict. Kamil. The last name Woronowic. Crestview Court West. I'm sorry? 11-3 Crestview Court West. West. So I just had a few follow-up questions to the previous gentleman and to your previous statement. So the question was, will the truck be idling? But for refrigeration, how will the refrigeration be maintained?
So the units on the trucks, my understanding, have battery backup for when they are turned off.
So it's a battery backup. So that potentially with a generator running on a propane.
That, again, I'm not the delivery company. I understand that they have battery backup, and if they have a generator backup,
Because the generator backups do not have to be regulated the same way as the truck as far as their pollution and noise pollution. And if anybody has been to Arthur's Bakery, Anthony's Bakery, with a lot of them are parked near Highway 287, very loud. So a single truck would be potentially above 100 decibels, is that correct?
I do not know.
You do not know that.
No.
As an expert.
I'm not an expert in the refrigeration vehicles now.
We will abide by all local ordinances and state ordinances on sound.
That's great to hear. And then you also, to follow up on the residential installation versus commercial, at some point you mentioned that the oil trap would be 90% efficient.
What was that?
The oil trap from the fryer, not the oil trap, but filters, the exhaust filters.
Exhaust, yes, correct.
Because they already have been approved for the, I believe it was the Chipotle.
Chipotle and Chick-fil-A have the.
And again, that's not a residential area, so my question is that an adequate level of fire protection for the wood structures of the residential homes that are near or adjacent to the McDonald's?
The building will certainly be designed to comply with the fire regulations and fire code.
There's 90%. To me, as a chemist, it seems like 2 hours out of the day it would be essentially equivalent to 2 hours of being unfiltered. That's a lot of deposits on the roofs, potential structures. Right.
No, so I mean, the unit itself that's their efficiency rating, based on the filters and the facilities it has inside. So it's operational at all times.
Because we did have a fire in one of the restaurants in Morris Plains, right? Local restaurants. Could be related to that, maybe not, but it's important to have safety.
The kitchens will comply with the fire code again. They have
Another question I had about the grease trap.
Yes.
Right? So can you tell us why they need a grease trap and how is grease or oil replaced in the front French fryers?
Madam Chairwoman, I know we said that the questions go to the two new exhibits, and we're going way back on stuff that we covered hours and hours ago. And I understand you have concerns about grease, whatever, but I mean, we did ask that the questions go to the exhibits.
My question is then on the Dayton Road exit. Right, so is that road currently zoned for trucks of 18-wheelers?
Yes.
Weight and
deliveries are permitted on Dayton Road.
Right, and then but the typical deliveries in the residential area would be very, very rare, as opposed to this would be very regular, daily. And my question is, if there is I think there was a comment at some point that the roads were planned in the 1920s. If there's a catalytic or catastrophic damage to the road, who will be responsible for that?
I think this is that's a good question for the traffic expert who's going to be coming up next. He's gonna be covering that. Mr. Peregoy, right there.
I guess I'll hold off with my questions until then. Thank you.
Joe Amorosa, Amorosa, 20 Dayton Road. Can you refresh my memory of what exhibits we're allowed to ask you about?
Sure, it's the one that's up on the screen, the delivery exhibit, and the site plan right there, which is the updated plans that were filed with the town in October. I'll bring that up here.
Are you going to be presenting the other plan sheets, the demolition plan perhaps?
I did not present it, no.
Is anyone going to be presenting the demolition plan?
No.
No. All the plans that were filed are on file, and they're all part of the application, and all the professionals issued comment letters on the plans. And so if there was an issue with the demolition plan, we would have addressed it here. There was no issues as far as we know.
Are you only presenting plans that our professionals chose to comment on?
No.
Why aren't you presenting the demolition plan?
Because there's nothing significant or material about it. I can see where you're going here. If you want to ask questions about the demolition plan, I guess you can. You said before you're not allowed to ask questions. That is not accurate. We're asking people to limit their questions to the two exhibits because we would like to get to the traffic expert, who I think a lot of people here would like to ask questions of. If you have a specific question on the demolition plan, go ahead. I'm anxious to hear it.
Are we able to view the demolition plan?
I mean, I have it up in front.
Why don't we have the question? Tell us your question first and see if you can answer it.
We need to view the plan.
Demolition plan sheet C3.
Can you zoom in on the Dayton Road disturbance? Why does this plan sheet not agree with the site plan as far as the disturbance where the realigned Dayton Road driveway goes?
Are you asking why the plan hasn't been updated yet to reflect the new driveway? Is that the question? Because it will be updated.
Can you zoom in on the revision date?
No, I see the issue. Sorry. This is revision 1, again dated October 7th. So the detached, which in the right-of-way represents the area of disturbance, you are correct, that should be extended further to the west to align with the driveway relocation.
Can you zoom in on the revision description? Can you read that for me?
Revised per township comments.
Are you aware we are a borough?
Okay, no, thank you.
Were there any comments on this plan?
No.
So what was revised on October 7th?
The entire plan set, which was resubmitted, so this is part of the plan set, and all sheets get that revision note.
Can you zoom in on the Dayton Road driveway?
On the demolition sheet?
Yes. Is there any consideration for maintaining those mature trees? marked as to be removed along Dayton Road?
There are 2 trees that are being removed from the Dayton Road right away due to the alignment of the driveway.
What's the sequence of construction as far as impacts beyond the property line?
That's something that would be worked out post-approval, coordination with the GCs and the township engineer.
How long will the sidewalk along Dayton Road and Speedwell be disturbed for?
We don't know at this time.
How will the site be protected?
This all will be hashed out at a pre-construction meeting. This is the standard way in a municipality prior to construction beginning. There will be a pre-construction meeting where all the relevant professionals will get in a room and they'll go over a logistics plan, staging plan, site protection, sidewalks, etc. That'll all be hashed out at that meeting.
Has the state had any comment on the impacts within their right-of-way, specifically the Speedwell sidewalk?
No.
Can I ask you about the grading and drainage plan? Any consideration for moving the new proposed manholes out of the sidewalk?
We're tying in on the Dayton Road side to the line that is there currently, so we have to drop what's called a doghouse manhole over the existing pipeline. So that's why that manhole is in that location. And similar to the, we're limited to where we can connect as far as our stormwater design, so we are dropping doghouse manholes. Those have to go over the existing pipes that are out in the right of ways.
Could your 2 drainage lines be connected into one, so you only need one new connection?
Technically, no. We're limited to the existing conditions. We cannot increase our runoff rates to any specific location, even though it all goes to the same system.
Is a new manhole in an existing sidewalk ADA compliant?
It will be, yes.
Has NJDOT weighed in on that?
Not yet.
Can I ask you about the utility plan?
Were you at the first 2 meetings?
Was the utility plan discussed at the first meetings?
No, but the questions on the plans were the first 2 meetings. So, I mean, go ahead, but I'm waiting for the material questions about the ability of McDonald's to operate at the site, not technical questions on the plans. But, I mean, everyone came out here, there's a lot of people looking to ask questions. Yeah, you want to read this all night? Okay. All right, okay. All right, good. Let's do the whole night on this, gentlemen. That's fine with me. Let's go. Go ahead. Let's look at the next plan.
Where will the new
This is an all-electric building, there's no gas.
Can you zoom in on the Dayton Road driveway?
Correction. Gas meters at the rear of the building. This is not an all-electric building.
Where will the gas valve be installed in Dayton Road?
That would be coordinated and directed by PSE&G.
Will the new water valve be installed in Dayton Road?
Yes, that would also be coordinated with the utility company.
Any consideration for moving the new water line away from that inlet on Dayton Road?
Again, it would depend on where the utility company wants our connection to be located.
Any consideration for an overhead electric connection so you don't have to trench under the speedwell sidewalk?
Underground is a requirement.
Can you zoom in on the southwest corner of the property? West. How will the tree roots be protected for the existing trees just off your property for this electric line to be installed?
That would be, again, coordinated during construction. Typically, there's only 2 or 3 ducts that are installed, so it's a small trench.
Can I ask you about the landscape plan, or is that a landscape architect?
No, go ahead.
How many years until maturity for the shade trees in terms of canopy width and density?
Say typically 8 to 10, depending on the species.
That's 8 to 10 years.
Yes.
What is the height of the proposed shade trees?
The shade trees. So the plan specs those coming in and being installed at a 2.5 to 3 inch caliber. So that would typically be around a 6 to 7 foot tree at planting.
What's their height at maturity?
Oh, at maturity, again, it depends on the species. So the oaks and maples would be in the 20 to 30 foot range.
Can I ask you about the lighting plan?
Yes.
Does the analysis of the illumination levels consider the shading effect of the trees?
It does not.
Was the proposed lighting level considered for overspill onto the public sidewalks?
Yes, it was considered.
And do you have those values for the Dayton and Speedwell sidewalks?
Not on me, we do provide with light levels at the property line. This is just modeling the effects of the light levels at the property line, and they are 0. So there's no 0, 0.1, 0. 0.1 being the maximum value. We did not go further than the property line.
What's the minimum allowable illumination level on a paved surface here?
The ordinance requirement is 0.5 foot candles with an average minimum of 1.
Was any consideration given to above minimum illumination levels at the pedestrian crosswalks on your site?
Yes.
Are these luminaires considered breakaway?
They are no.
Any consideration for relocating that light away from the handicap parking stall?
The light is located in an area where if you're parking, it would be outside of where the bumper would fall, and it's located on a concrete pedestal. So we let the lighting levels dictate where we drop our lighting fixtures.
Can I ask you about the soil erosion and sediment control plan?
Sure.
How many more topics do you have? You don't know? How many more topics do you plan to ask questions on?
I didn't know we were reevaluating these. I thought this was my first chance at talking to
It is, you're getting the whole chance. I'm asking you how much you got left. That's a fair question. How much more do you have?
I don't know. If you, I don't.
Please, I'm speaking, please. We have somebody's transcribed. The applicant, essentially asked the board to bend the rules that it's only gonna be questions. And this is in fairness of future applicants have to come, board members that volunteer, whether there have to be enough meetings to cover this. So there has to be a limit. People get to ask questions one time. So the first time the engineer went around, and you could ask, and everybody here could ask any question they want, there was no limitation. When he came back for 2 exhibits, and that's why I was limited to that. If the board would like to reinstate that the applicant would like to go back to what the limit is, only on the 2 exhibits. And I know you don't like to work, it's fairness to everybody, so this application can get done before time expires, and we run into the next application, and you have to have 4 meetings a month to do it. So, as of now, I think we would go back to, the questions are fairly limited to the 2 additional exhibits that were introduced.
When can I ask questions about the sediment control plan?
As I said, you were able to ask the first time the engineer talked, you could ask about anything. You chose not to. Please.
It says revised October 7th.
Okay. He said that it wasn't. There were 2 exhibits that gave additional exhibits. That's it. Those were the ones that the board has said, in all fairness, can be asked. So that's it. Asking back and forth, that's the answer. There are 2 exhibits you can ask questions on, and then we're going to move forward.
When can I ask questions about the other exhibits?
I think you had an opportunity previously, that's the point. This is just going in circular, we're just going circular. The answer is, you can ask any questions that you want of the 2 additional exhibits. Everybody here asked questions on whatever they wanted previously, when you had a time to. That's the rule. We're trying to do this in order of fashion.
Even if it's revised?
Did you hear what I said? Okay. You can ask questions on the two additional exhibits.
What are the two exhibits? I keep talking
Okay. Can you put that back up?
Site plan rendering, A5, and A6, the circulation exhibit.
about. Can you bring out the delivery vehicle? Did you consider the site distance calculations for the truck exiting from Diggin' to Speedwell?
Not sure what you mean by site distance.
Did you look at the site distance requirements for the delivery truck to turn from Dayton to Speedwell?
Yes, we did. It's not modeled in this exhibit.
Did you consider the safety impacts of the vehicle making a right from Speedwell into the driveway due to the existing cross-section constraints of Speedwell Avenue?
Can you repeat that on the following?
What happens when a car tries to pass the truck on the right before the truck turns right?
Well, it's a one-lane road, so the car should not be trying to pass the truck as they're making the maneuver.
Have you ever visited this town? Have you driven down this part of Speedwell Ave?
Yes,
What time of day?
many times of the day. Rush hour, and at night at the hearings, and on the way to these meetings.
What design speed did you use for this swept path analysis?
The delivery truck, you mean?
Yes.
So this is modeled at a maximum speed to show that the maneuvers down to 5 miles per hour.
What happens to a bicyclist who's surprisingly in the road on Speedwell when the truck turns right?
Prior to entering or prior to entering the site, you mean?
Yeah, that's right, entering the city.
Well, if the truck's already making the maneuver, the bicyclist would have to pause and wait for the truck to clear the area.
Can you remind me where the truck's gonna stop in the parking lot to offload?
We have an exhibit that's.
We're gonna have our traffic expert cover that.
Did you do a swept path analysis of the truck backing up towards the trash enclosure?
Yes, the traffic engineer will show that.
You've measured and confirmed that the parking lot can circulate freely while the truck is offloading?
Correct.
Will that be shown on a plan?
Yes. Traffic engineer will provide that.
Can we look at the site plan? control devices MUTCD compliant?
Yes.
The crosswalk at the west end of the building, that speed bump, is it a bump or a hump or a table?
It's a table, 6 foot wide at the top.
Does that meet the ASHTO requirements for a speed table?
It's a crosswalk. It's not a designed speed table, it's acting as a speed table, and that it's elevating the crosswalk.
Is there a design speed for that? Is there a design speed for that speed table crosswalk?
It's a low speed design. It's intended again just for the on-site circulation. It's not intended as a traditional speed table that would be used in a right way.
Can you zoom in on the crosswalk across Speedwell? Are you reconstructing the curb ramp at the northwest corner of the Hillview intersection?
No.
Does that existing crosswalk meet the requirements for a perpendicular crossing?
It joins with a turning area, so the crosswalk connects to the other crosswalk, allowing for a compliant turning maneuver so that you can go left or right along this sidewalk on Speedwell.
At the east end of that crosswalk, did you consider a wider curb ramp to accommodate the wider crosswalk straightening?
No, due to the existing, there's an inlet there, so we're held to, without having to do additional work out on that area, there was no need for a wider curb radius.
Are your garbage cans on little concrete sidewalk pads or just on the grass?
They would be on the grass.
Can you zoom in on the east end of the building where the drive-through lane circulates around? What design vehicle are you showing here through the drive-through?
It's a 20-foot long just passenger vehicle.
Was there any bumper-to-bumper offset considered between subsequent vehicles?
No, it's just illustrative.
At the Dayton Road exit, did you consider any geometric constraints to keep people turning left and stopping at right turns?
Do you mean the car traveling west on Dayton?
Exiting from McDonald's to Dayton. Exiting from McDonald's to Dayton.
Did I consider left turns?
As shown, you have the angle of the driveway and signs that say no right turn.
all those two items specifically were revised in revision 1 of the plans that were submitted versus the original driveway, which was 20 feet wide and left, met the road, Dayton Road, at a perpendicular connection.
Did you consider bollards or any other fixed objects to prevent that right turn?
No, because again, that's all, anything beyond the property line is on town, on borough property, so we did not propose anything further out there.
Did you measure the site triangle requirements for cars circulating through the drive-through, approaching the crosswalks at the west end of the building?
Site triangles are at where roadways connect to each other, not for crosswalks. So that crosswalk was added as, in response to a request from the board at the first meeting.
Did you consider extending the diagonal piece of sidewalk from the Dayton Road corner to the yellow triangular area?
No.
Can you remind me where the bike rack is?
It's located between the building and the driveway.
Is there a bike rack for employees?
There's one bike rack proposed.
We talked about this the last 2 meetings. I'm gonna ask again. Did you ask McDonald's to verify? Oh, I'm sorry. Lisa Schroeder, 97 Maple Avenue. I'm sorry. Did you ask McDonald's to verify the sworn testimony from its director of operations that the average McDonald's does 1,000 transactions per day?
Your traffic expert will be addressing that, which is what I said last time.
I'm asking him if he followed up with a representative from McDonald's about their business case for what the business volumes would be expected for this particular site.
Our traffic expert will be.
Not the trip transactions, I'm asking about expected business transactions.
Did I follow up with McDonald's on that?
I believe you said that you would, because we've asked this question twice now.
Our traffic expert followed up.
In the new site plan, were you dealing with any exceptionally narrow or shallow characteristics?
In regards to,
Just your overall design of the updated site plan, where is there anything about the lot that is exceptionally narrow or shallow?
no, there's sufficient width and area to accommodate the proposed use.
Or would you say that this lot is oddly shaped?
I would not.
This issue about the operating hours has evolved. It's been kind of a point of negotiation in the last couple of hearings. Can you just confirm what those hours of operations will be and confirm that the drive-through is not going to stay open any later than the restaurant would be open for walk-in?
I believe the last testimony in the hours was 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
With no extended hours for drive-through, correct?
Correct.
In your updated site plan, is there a designated area for emergency vehicles to park?
No, they're just standard vehicle parking.
Were your plans cross-referenced with the Morris Plains fire zone in that regard?
fire zone.
I guess there's a fire zone map that would give some indicator of where and how parking for emergency vehicles needs to be provided, and so far I haven't seen any indication of emergency vehicle parking.
Correct, we're not proposing any emergency vehicle parking. If there's an emergency, the site can be accessed by the borough's equipment. The delivery truck would be larger than a fire truck, larger than an ambulance, so that would prove that those vehicles would be able to get in and out of the site without issue.
Was the local fire chief consulted about the safety of the plan and the layout?
Yes.
And would it be possible for deliveries to be made with smaller box trucks?
I do not believe so, no. The McDonald's usually runs on, they have a private delivery service, and only trucks I've ever seen are the full size.
So they don't make concessions for the local community?
I'm not aware of any options for that.
All right, Mike Ivey, 8 Leavenworth Drive, First Plans. Just quick questions on the EV charging. I think you said that for the initial phase, the equipment will not be installed, correct? It's just make ready?
Make ready, correct.
Okay. So are the pads, are there conduits pre-laid between the dispenser and the town?
No, not between, well, anything under the concrete would be installed.
Just empty conduits?
Correct.
Okay. I would suggest swapping where the transformer is with the panel, because where you have the panel sitting right now, it's on the utility easement, the primary is running right directly underneath it. And also in between where the transformer and the switch is, it's gonna be a definite nightmare for you guys to be running.
Noted on the equipment changes, I'm not aware of an utility easement in that area.
Well, once they run the primary to the transformer. And then so for the initial phase, we'll just, be putting in that transformer and the initial primary dropping pole, or is that future phase too?
No, so that would all be, again, that would be coordinated with the utility provider, but typically, yes, they would only install a transformer when something's coming online.
Okay, so all that will be future phase. All right, separate question for the parking spaces. I know there's a variance to make it a shallower depth because you're assuming everybody will be using the curb as a tire stop and have to use them pulling all the way into the space, correct?
Yeah, I believe we addressed that originally where that waiver or variance would not be required due to the fact that all the parking spaces overhang into the landscape areas, providing additional length.
Right. So, would it be prudent to be relocating the light fixtures and the signs further away from the curb line, because right now it's 2.6? Many people are not going to want to get nose to nose against the sun too.
Sure, we can accommodate that.
Jill Cecere, 11 Tabor Road. McDonald's, if it's approved, its address will be Spicka Avenue. I'm sorry. Sure. If this is approved, the McDonald's will have a Spicka Avenue address?
I believe so.
And were there any alternate plans or designs that would not have the delivery truck exiting onto Tabor Road?
No.
At the last meeting, you said you were aware that trucks this size were not allowed on Tabor Road. Yet there was
Except
no-
for local deliveries.
But the delivery is going to come in from Speedwell Avenue to a Speedwell Avenue address, right?
Yes.
So the design is, we did take into consideration exiting, come in to make the delivery on Dayton Road, on Speedwell Avenue, because it is a Speedwell Avenue address. But the design is made so that the truck cannot exit out Speedwell Avenue. And there was no other alternate designs.
The design is for the delivery truck to exit onto Dayton Avenue. The property has frontages on both roads, and actually the frontage on Dayton Road is longer than the frontage on Dayton. Speedwell.
Okay, but the McDonald's address would be Speedwell Avenue,
Potentially, yes.
and trucks are not allowed on the Dayton Road unless they're making a delivery to Dayton Road or Canfield, because there's no other access. But you are able to make your deliveries from Speedwell Avenue, correct? You just can't, you're just not capable of exiting back onto Speedwell Avenue from this property.
With this design, we're yes. So
No other
with this
design
design,
considerations, that's what I'm basically asking. Considering that you have knowledge that trucks are not allowed on
so the question is there a design consideration?
There was no other design considerations for the configuration for the trucks exiting.
No, we intended for the deliveries to exit to Dayton Road for the ideal layout that we wanted for the
You
McDonald's.
guys will lay out when you're done. Thank you.
Youngher, 10 Walsh Way. This is a follow-up from the last meeting, specific about, this is the final revision, as I understand it. This is the most recent.
The current iteration, yes.
Okay. I asked some questions about pedestrian safety and the pedestrian crossing from the west entrance on that sort of pseudo table. And one of the things that you had said you would possibly redesign was the approach to that table from a car that was leaving the drive-through. Since that's their only way out, either just Speedwell or to Dayton, involves going over that table. What traffic calming measures, so to speak, did you design in for the updated revisions?
We have not revised the plans since the last meeting, and the speed table crosswalk is the traffic calming intended to reduce the vehicle speed through that area and highlight the fact that there's a pedestrian crossing there.
So, am I right to infer that you're not going to consider any other traffic calming measures, any other redirection of the drive-through traffic toward the northwest to sort of encourage or force slowing down and approaching that pedestrian crossing?
There's definitely revisions still to be done to the plans, but the intent is to maintain one driveway to Dayton Road, to Speedwell Avenue. So the traffic exiting the site from the drive-through lane would still have to go over the crosswalk.
Sure.
So, but yes, there are additional measures that we can incorporate.
I was speaking specifically about or asking specifically about the approach to that crosswalk. I understand from the design there's only that way out, but in approaching it, with the line of sight being limited by the building, and assuming that that's approximately to scale, the beginning of that ramp looks like it would be almost immediately after it appears, the driver would be hitting the ramp with not much reaction time to slow for the ramp for pedestrians. What are some possibilities in your experience as a designer of sites like this to give drivers additional time to see and react to pedestrians?
So there's additional signage can be provided as far as alerting cars exiting the drive-through lane, and then we can shift the crosswalk in its entirety to the south, which would increase the distance from that turning maneuver. But again, further adding additional time to see that there's crosswalk, see that there's pedestrian, and react to it.
Shift to the south, but it would still be on the west face of the building.
Yes, to enter, right, the shortest path to the building.
And would that be in a future revision that we would be presented?
Yeah, it's something we intend to look at further, absolutely.
Jeff Spicka, S-P-I-C-K-A, 30 Sun Valley Way. Previously, I had asked a question about the main driveway and the distance to the Dunkin' Donuts driveway. Do you have that number? Or will the traffic engineer have that number?
Yes, the traffic engineer will have it.
Has the new driveway moved to the north on the plan, on the other plan?
No, this is the same plan from the last meeting. We've not changed it, but it has shifted north from the original iteration.
How many feet?
3 feet further north.
Does the delivery driver make a decision on where he's gonna park when he comes to make a delivery? Or is he instructed where to park?
He would be instructed by the store operator, owner.
Will he check in and then he'll be told where to park?
Yes, that's part of the coordination of setting up the deliveries.
So on a daily basis or nightly or whenever he makes that delivery, he'll check in and be told where to park?
Yeah, and the intent from, the McDonald's program is that the truck driver would be the same, so they'd be familiar with the site. But it'd be part of their regular route.
How many entrances or exits are there from the building?
So there's one main entrance to the customer service area on the west facade, one customer service area entrance on the west, then there's 3 service doors to the back of house on the, again, south facade towards the east end of the building, and then there's one rear door also to the back of the house. So 2 public doors, and then the rest are employee only.
Can patrons use the service doors?
No.
What is the walking, how do I walk if I park in the back of the parking lot? How would I get into the building? What's the route that I should take?
You would walk down the circulation aisle, or either end, depending on where you are, or you can cross the drive-through lanes and enter into the sidewalk area. Similar to any regular shopping center with a large parking field, you're walking in the circulation aisle.
There's no crosswalk from the back of the parking lot to any of the doorways?
No, because again, the doors are located at the western side of the building. But there are ADA crosswalks, so if you're walking along the south side of the, so if you park, say, in the last 6 spaces, you can again walk along the parking field, and then you can cross the traffic at the crosswalks, and you can do that on either end of the building.
So I'm gonna have to watch for backing up cars and also cars coming at me, or trucks to park. I'm just gonna have to make a decision on the best way to get into the building on my own.
Correct.
There's no crosswalk. I had a question about the crosshatch at Dayton and Speedwell. You had mentioned that the Morris Plains Police requested that?
Yes, correct.
Do you know the date that they requested that? I guess, was it after the application was filed?
It was requested on June 14th. So yes, after the application was filed.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Hi, Greg Devine, 91 Sun Valley Way. You might go to exhibit had indicated it could have been addressed at speed well. I guess you're aware of the McDonald's own traffic impact study, which lists the specific address as 415 and 435 Speedwell Avenue.
That's the current setback, that's correct.
Right, is there any application with the town or otherwise to have the address changed?
Not currently, no.
No, okay. With regard to that exhibit, I see that is the yellow the truck delivery pad on that exhibit?
Yes.
So that truck is able to make that maneuver, that tight maneuver around the drive-through lane and make that turn, right? So what is preventing that delivery truck from staying within the footprint of the square with the grass around the corners and exiting on speed lane?
The traffic experts can actually have an exhibit that shows where it's gonna be parked, so I think that's a better question for him. He's the one who's gonna testify on the exhibit.
He's going to testify on the capability of the truck to make turns within the perimeter?
Yes.
Okay, because last time you testified to the capability of the truck to make the right turn back on the speedway without crossing onto the other side.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So that remains consistent. It's going to, let's say it exits on Dayton and makes a right onto speedway. You're indicating it won't cross over the street to make that turn.
Turning right onto.
Right, yeah.
No, I said on the last meeting that they would potentially have to swing wide to make that right turn.
So is the traffic expert the appropriate person to talk about the restriction? Actually, can you make deliveries off the Speedwell Avenue to McDonald's?
Can you make deliveries? Yes.
There's nothing preventing a truck from entering off of Speedwell onto, let's say McDonald's has a Speedwell address.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So the regulation strictly restricts vehicles from turning onto Dayton Road or using that road if they're over 4 tons. The only exception being Part C. Nothing shall be construed as preventing such trucks from making deliveries of merchandise or other property along streets from which such trucks are excluded. So it's a Speedwell address, you have a Speedwell entrance, the navigation capabilities of the trucks are clearly shown. There's no, my view is, and this is probably a question to you, your interpretation is different, the board should know, it's a Speedwell address, Speedwell accessibility, deliveries can be made. Dayton Road is not, do you believe Dayton Road is necessary as an egress point to make a delivery?
Yes.
So a truck cannot turn within the perimeter is what you're saying. I know you said talk to traffic, but you designed this.
Correct. For a truck to turn back in front of the building as designed, we would have to make additional changes. We'd have to widen up the pavement area. They would just need more maneuvering room. So instead of going that route, we kept the impervious coverage low. Again, it's a reduction from what's out there today because we were taking advantage of the existing roadway network.
So currently your plan, if I'm looking at the left side, it's adequately, it actually looks the same or narrower. It's capable of coming in, parking and delivering, but for some reason the other side of that has more footprint of pavement isn't able to accommodate that truck from making the turn that it made on the left side. Swinging around the bottom, it can't turn around and go through that parking lot back out. It can make the turn in, it has enough room to enter, it has enough room to deliver, it has enough room to maneuver between the garbage area and where it delivers and make that turn. But it can't make the turn within the footprint that's currently there.
Correct. So once if you were to go around the building, once you're in front of the building, there need to be more room for the truck to continue that path to make it back out to Speedwell. It's a different maneuver than just coming in and turning straight toward the back of the site.
And then the traffic study obviously is.
Thank you.
Kate Katz, 1790 Wild Drive. Kate Katz, 1790 Wild Drive. Idlewild. Yes, IDLEWILD. You're welcome. I wanted to ask a question about the berm at the back of the property, if I can do that. I wanted to ask what provisions have been made to ensure the proper drainage off the berm so that the properties on the other side aren't susceptible to stormwater runoff and flooding as a result of the berm existing.
So, as designed, the grading is intended for everything to flow to the west. There are currently no provisions for the minimal area, it's about 3 feet, that drains towards the east from the berm, but again, the stormwater line will be able to go around the berm and then back down to the pavement area where their stormwater facilities are.
And it wouldn't impact the neighboring properties directly on the other side, or property?
No, the intent is to have all the stormwater into the pavement area.
Okay, and then it's my understanding that over time berms can deteriorate and erosion can happen. Per the plans for the construction of the berm, what kind of maintenance might be required to the landscaping to maintain it and to prevent erosion?
So typically once if approved, if installed, there would be a 2-year bond put in place that would ensure that the landscaping that's there gets established and doesn't die off. So once it's established, the berm should take care of itself. And again, if any of the trees or anything happens, you just replace them.
Okay, so there's no maintenance whatsoever required?
No, not as much.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, before we take a break at 9, I would like to call our next witness, Mr. Craig Peregoy.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. It was in my review reports, the first comment I had related to the site access at Speedwell, the ingress, specifically related to the 2 driveway lanes and the rather abrupt turn to the line getting into each of those lanes, and was requested to provide turn templates, passenger vehicle turning templates from the ingress oriented to each of those 2 drives. And when I brought this up at the last meeting, you said you would provide it. Has that plan been prepared?
Has been prepared, and the traffic engineer can.
So he will present it. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Peregoy, please.
Raise your right hand, state your name. Let's get in front of the microphone there. Sit there. Yeah, say sit there. Maybe you can get right here. Raise your right hand, state your name, spell your name.
Sure, my name is Craig Peregoy, P-E-R-E-G-O-Y.
Keep that hand raised. You swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
You want to take a break? Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break.
What's wrong?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. At this time, we did call Craig Peregoy. This is our traffic engineer. Mr. Peregoy, could you please give the board the benefit of your educational background and your qualifications?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Virginia Tech. I'm a licensed. There's a jet engine.
We're going to turn the air conditioner off.
Okay, so credentials. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Virginia Tech. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey. Been practicing as a traffic engineer for almost 25 years now. I testify pretty much on a nightly basis in front of planning and zoning boards throughout the state as an expert in traffic engineering.
We would ask that Mr. Peregoy be accepted as an expert in the field of traffic engineering.
Does anyone object to this? Everyone agrees?
I just want to know, have you done it in Morris Plains or in Morris County?
Yes, Morris County all the time. I did testify in Morris Plains. It was probably 15 years ago. I think it was the Chase Bank maybe in Speedwell. I think that was maybe that was a while back. But I Morristown frequently, and Hanover, Parsippany, all the time.
Okay, thank you for this qualification.
Okay, Mr. Peregoy, your office prepared a traffic impact study dated May 28th, 2024. That was revised on or about September 13, 2024. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, could you please provide the board with an overview of the traffic impact and parking assessment report and your findings and conclusions?
Sure. So our traffic report essentially does two things. We look at the off-site traffic impacts and the adequacy of the ability of the roadway network to handle those, and then we also look at the on-site circulation and the parking and the drive-through design and those types of things that we've been talking about for 3 meetings. So I'll start with the traffic impact part of things. We can mix things up a little bit. The way we begin any traffic impact study is to collect traffic count data to get an idea of the existing traffic volumes that are on the roadways. And in this case, we took our traffic counts at the Speedwell Avenue intersections with Dayton Road and Hillview Avenue. And what we want to do is isolate the time periods where the roadway is going to be its busiest, coincident with, in this case, a McDonald's restaurant being its busiest. So we look at the weekday morning and weekday evening peak time periods, and then we look at the Saturday and lunchtime time period, because that's when you have shopper traffic as its busiest. So those are the worst case scenarios that we analyze as traffic engineers. The thought being that the rest of the day, there's less traffic being generated by McDonald's, less traffic on the roadways, so things will operate better. So we want to see the worst case scenario. So we collect those counts, and I'll give a little more detail than you probably already understand, given the audience, just so that you have an understanding of how we do it. We collect the traffic counts via turning movement counts, how many cars turn left, right, through, etc., how many pedestrians cross the road, and it's done in 15-minute increments. So in the morning, we do that from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. In the evening, we do it from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. And then Saturday, we do it from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then we take the 4 highest consecutive 15-minute intervals, and that's the peak hour. So we isolate the busiest hour within those 3 time periods, giving us the morning, evening, and Saturday peak hour. At this particular location, now the peak times will vary from day to day, but during the counts that we did, the peak hour in the morning was at 7:30 to 8:30. In the evening, 4:45 to 5:45, and then Saturday was 11 a.m. to noon. If I went out there and did the same counts 3 days from now, that might shift a few minutes, but that's what it was here, just informationally. Traffic volumes during those peak hours, Speedwell Avenue is seeing about 1,300 to 1,400 vehicles per hour two-way traffic. Dayton, much quieter, on the order of 10 to 15 vehicles per hour. And then Hillview in the evening and the Saturday, you're in the 20 to 30 vehicle range. The morning a little heavier, around 60, because obviously that's when the school activity is coincident with those peak time periods. Your traffic engineer asked about the at Speedwell Avenue. 1 pedestrian crossed in the morning, 8 in the evening, and 4 on the Saturday, just during the peak hour, just informationally. So you have an idea of the numbers that we're working with. Now, what I need to do is project into the future and how much traffic we're going to see at the time the McDonald's is going to be constructed and operational, which is obviously be a bit from now. New Jersey DOT publishes growth rates for roadways. And in this area, this type of road in Morris County, they publish a 2% per year growth rate. So I took those traffic counts, those peak hour counts that I counted at 2% per year times 2 years to get the future no-build volumes, or the future volumes that would be there without the McDonald's. Now that's a little bit conservative. Anytime I've gone back and done counts a year or 2 years later at the same spot, we're not seeing that level of traffic growth, so it's kind of a conservative number that's built in to the DOT data, but that's what we're to use in New Jersey. So the next step we need to do is figure out how much traffic McDonald's will generate itself during those peak time periods, during those same peak hours. And what we do is assume that the busiest hour of McDonald's in the morning, in the evening, and Saturday is the exact same hour that the road is the busiest. So again, the idea of looking at that worst case scenario. The McDonald's traffic is projected based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or ITE's trip generation manual. That's how traffic engineers project traffic volumes for various land uses. And in this case, the land use that I use is fast food restaurant with drive-through. So it's generic. It's not specific to McDonald's. It's nationally collected data at fast food restaurants. And that's what the DOT would make me use, and that's what the standard traffic engineering industry uses. To give you an idea of the numbers that the projections are, this is just the hourly trips. The morning peak hour total volume. Now this is cars going in and out of the driveways of the site. The morning peak hour, it's 69 entering, 66 entering vehicles. Evening peak hours, 52 entering, 48 exiting. And then the Saturday peak hour, 86 entering, 82 exiting. That's based on the ITE numbers. Now, what you have to keep in mind is that those traffic volumes going in and out are not all people who have come from far and wide to come to McDonald's. Most of them are already traveling on Speedwell Avenue, and now there's a McDonald's there, so they can stop in and get their cup of coffee and their egg McMuffin and continue on their way. So that phenomenon is called pass-by traffic. In other words, it's people who will come in and visit the site that would have already been on, in this case, just Speedwell Avenue, either way. And the ITE gives me rates for that. So in the morning, 50% of the traffic is pass-by traffic to a fast food restaurant. In the evening, 55%, and on the Saturday, 37% of the traffic volumes, those numbers that I gave you, would be pass-by traffic, meaning those cars are already out there on Speedwell Avenue. When the McDonald's is there, now they're going to turn in and make a purchase and continue on their way. Now, I keep mentioning here that I'm using this ITE data and this fast food data because that's, as a traffic engineer, I have to use the industry standard because I'm looking to test the worst case scenario. But the reality is, on a roadway like this, busy roadway, state highway, I think that pass-by percentage is going to be much higher than the 50-55% that I gave you in reality. And I also keep mentioning that I'm just looking at fast food restaurants. We've done lots of work for McDonald's over the years, and they've done a lot of the repurposing and rebranding of the stores where they're going from the single drive-through lane to the double drive-through lane. I've been involved in 31 of those applications over the years. And every time we do one of those, we count the actual McDonald's itself. We count how many cars go in and out, how many use the drive-through, how many park, how long the drive-through queue is. So we really assess all those to see, first of all, switching to the double drive-through in that case is going to make an improvement, and just to make sure that we are taking away parking, for example, that there's enough. So I've kept those statistics and that data, and if I compare that to the ITE numbers that I have to use as a traffic engineer, I find that they're lower. The McDonald's in most of those 31 are in New Jersey. There's a couple in Pennsylvania, and a couple in New York, but pretty much in the Northeast are generating less hourly traffic volumes than the generic ITE fast food restaurant that's sourced from data all over the country. We find that it's 30% lower in the morning, 16% lower in the evening, and it's 50% of what the ITE tells me this Saturday is, based on McDonald's in the Northeast. So again, just pointing that out, I used in my analysis the ITE numbers and the more conservative, but the reality is we're seeing lower traffic generation numbers than what my report uses. The last thing that I guess, and typically it's not part of a traffic engineering report because you don't analyze daily traffic generation, it's based on hourly traffic generation, but I know there's been a lot of questions from the public in terms of how many cars per day in the ITE, because McDonald's agrees that the numbers make sense based on their projections. It says 710 vehicles in and 710 out. Obviously, nobody's staying at McDonald's overnight. 710 in, 710 out per day, the daily number. That doesn't really mean anything in terms of my traffic analysis, but I know that the question's been asked a lot, so I wanted to give you guys that information. Something else to consider is, this isn't vacant property. I know the Friendlies is out of business now. There's nothing that says they can reopen and start working again, or another restaurant can move in there. You have the small office complex next door. Obviously that is open and generating traffic. I didn't take any credit for that. I didn't remove any traffic. So when I did our traffic counts, some of those cars that we counted were probably going in and out of the site today. I didn't remove them, no credit for them. I just assumed this is vacant land and added other cars on top of that. Again, with that theme to being conservative and really look at a worst case scenario. So that being said, the next step that I need to do is assign the traffic and onto the roadway network over top of those no-build volumes. Where are people going to turn? Where are we going to add our traffic? That pass-by traffic again comes in and goes on the same way. The new traffic and the non-pass-by comes in and goes back the way they came, essentially. Typically, we'd see for a use like this, it's going to sort of replicate the new traffic or replicate the roadway volumes. Speedwell Avenue, for all intents and purposes, it's about a 50-50 split directionally. It's one direction in the morning, one direction in the evening. For the most part, it's an even split. Pass-by traffic tends to be more slanted towards right turn in and right turn out because it's a convenience move. I can get a cup of coffee at any number of places between where I'm living and going to work. If I have to make a left in and a left out, a lot tougher, probably going to go someplace else. So it tends to be more right in, right out. And that's where our initial May report, we had it more, it's usually about 80-20 split right in, right out. Mr. Maltz, your traffic engineer, suggested that we use that same proportion of the roadway network, again, looking to test that worst case scenario. So the revised report does have that 50-50 split for the pass-by traffic rather than the more slanted towards the right in, right out. And we're still okay in terms of the analysis. So the traffic analysis is done for the peak hours in a number of ways. The first thing I calculate is the level of service, and that's basically the amount of delay per vehicle. It's based on those traffic volumes, stop control, lane widths, things of that nature. It's a computer program that calculates the average delay per vehicle, and then the ranges of delays are related to a level of service. A being the best, 0 to 10 seconds of delay. B, sort of like grades in school, but not necessarily, because when you're designing a new facility, you typically shoot for a level of service D. And I don't think that would have gone so well for me in school if I shot for a D, so I don't know if I like the grades of school analogy, but you typically shoot to get a level of service D in the peak hours, the idea being the rest of the day is going to be much better. New Jersey DOT, who's going to control the driveway here, it's their road, allows drivers to operate at a level of service D. So with all that worst case scenario, the driveways during the morning and evening are at a level of service D. In the evening, we had a D in the original, but when I went a little bit more conservative, that is a level of service E. We're looking at double the traffic that I think we're likely going to see on a Saturday based on, like I said before, those other McDonald's, but it still works. Worst case, absolute scenario, we still meet the DOT's criteria, and we still have acceptable levels of service on the roadways. The next layer that you get into is queue lengths. You want to make sure that, especially in an unsignalized intersection, that you're not going to have queues of vehicles extending too deep into the site. The same analysis software calculates what's called the 95th percentile queue. calculations, so I'm gonna give you the numbers, there's decimals. For example, the morning, the 95th percentile queue leaving the site is 1.1. You're not gonna have a tenth of the vehicle, but it's a mathematical calculation. The evening, it's 0.9, so you're basically one car waiting to pull out. And then Saturday, it's up at 2.3 vehicles, which easily fits on the site at the driveway through it, doesn't create any circulation problems or any issues. So that's sort of the second layer. It's something that it's not always done as traffic engineers, but when there's a little more sensitivity and as was requested by your traffic engineer, we do what's called a gap study. Now, on a roadway like Speedwell Avenue, or really any roadway, when you have upstream and downstream traffic signals, two things happen. One, they can back up and block the driveway or the access point that you're looking at, or they help and create gaps in traffic that aren't necessarily accounted for in just the straight analysis, which assumes just a free flow of traffic. You have a little bit of both happening here at this location. Sometimes you can do circles around in Speedwell Avenue, and sometimes it's backed up past the driveway. So the appropriate thing to do is make sure there are enough physical gaps in the traffic to allow vehicles to exit on Speedwell Avenue, and that's done via a gap study. We went back out again to collect that data, and we wanted to, it wasn't ready for the first hearing, because we wanted to make sure that school was in session. Obviously, you have the school across the street. So we went back out on Thursday, September 12th, and on Saturday, September 7th, to do that gap study. And you're basically just timing how much time between vehicles traveling on Speedwell Avenue. What the highway capacity manual and our calculations tell us, based on nationally collected research, that you need a 7.1 second gap to make a left turn and a 6.2 second gap to make a right turn. With a follow-up gap being shorter, in the order of 3.5 seconds, meaning one person makes a left, you're rolling up to the stop sign, you would take a smaller gap because you have that momentum. I can tell you right now that if you wait for a 7-second gap in traffic in New Jersey and somebody's sitting behind you, they're going to be on the horn pretty quick, because that's a lot. We definitely are used to smaller gaps in New Jersey. But again, sticking to the letter of the law, we use that 7-second gap. And actually had a conversation with your traffic engineer. We had a little bit of different methodologies on how we do the actual calculations for the gap study. His is actually more accurate and better, and I'm changing the way I do it based on that. But when I do the calculations based on what we saw out there, we can accommodate 138 exiting vehicles in the morning peak hour, 104 in the evening peak hour, and 113 in Saturday. Our projections have coming out 60 a.m., 44 p.m., and 74 Saturday. So there are enough gaps in the traffic stream to accommodate the exiting traffic. So, I'm sorry? Repeat. Sure. The gaps are the numbers coming out. Both. Yes. Morning gaps. This is gaps. 138. PM 104. Saturday 113. And then the actual volume of cars that we project coming out are 60 a.m., 44 p.m., and 74 Saturday. So 3 layers of sort of looking at it. You look at the level of service, which is sort of the first step, and most often that's all that is done. You look at the queuing, make sure that that's not going to be an issue. That works, and then you take it one step farther and do the gap study, which I agree made sense to do here, and that works as well. So no matter which way you look at it, the traffic analysis shows that this site can handle the traffic. The roadway network has the capacity to handle the traffic. I know it's busy out there. I know it's a lot going on, and that's really why McDonald's wants to be here. They want to capture those people who are traveling on Speedwell Avenue. There's a lot of McDonald's in New Jersey. You're not going to have people coming far and wide from far and wide during peak hours to visit this particular McDonald's. Most of the people are going to be who live in town or are already traveling on Speedwell Avenue past the site. So that's it from the traffic capacity side. I did get a request, I think it was the police department, not Mr. Maltz, that asked if, to look at the crash history. Maybe it was whatever. We went and requested 3 years of crash history just to see if there was any accident history that could be corrected or could be an issue. In that 3 years, there were 3. The police department gave us 3 crash reports. One of them was actually down at Rosedale Avenue, and 2 of them near the site frontage were just rear end crashes, which is there's nothing you can do to fix those. It's just it just happens. Hopefully the cameras in the cars and all the beeping that they do now will help that as everybody gets the smart vehicles. But typically, the criteria for mitigating any accidents is 5 preventable crashes within a 12-month period. So we have 3 over a 3 or 36-month period. So there's certainly not a crash pattern out here or anything to be concerned about. We are going to make this a safer configuration. We're getting rid of a driveway. There's 2 driveways at this property now. We're going to consolidate that to 1. We're flipping that crosswalk to the other side of Hillview for better visibility. It's going to be a 10-foot wide crosswalk. You don't have to carry the little flags across the street anymore. It's going to have the rapid flashing beacons that work extremely well. So there isn't an issue now, and there's not going to be anything that's going to be better in a safer condition. And that the do not block the box, assuming DOT is okay with that, will help things as well. So that's covers sort of the off-site or the access traffic side of things. Next up, what we look at is the parking supply. I know the testimony before was about your ordinance requirements. We'll go through that. We have 30 parking spaces on the site proposed. We get a credit for 2 spaces for the EV. So the letter of the law says we have 32 spaces. There's 30 physical parking spaces on the site. Your ordinance is kind of interesting that you have the 2 different criteria and you apply whichever one is greater. So the first criteria is 1 space per 2.5 seats. We have 39 seats, so that comes up with 16 parking spaces required, which makes sense because the people who are parking are sitting in the seats, not using the drive-thru. The next criteria we have to take the greater is 1 per 75 square feet of floor area, and it does say gross floor area in your ordinance. I've seen that 1 per 75 in a lot of municipalities, but it's usually the customer service area. It doesn't include the kitchen and the dry goods stores and the freezer space and the drive-through operation space. But your ordinance does, so that math comes out to 41 parking spaces. That's why we need the parking variance. I can assure you that, and I'll go through my reasoning why this site has plenty of parking for McDonald's. First, I'll go back to the ITE. They also have parking generation data similar to the traffic numbers that I gave you. They have collected parking counts in the generic fast food restaurant with drive-through. The average peak demand, parking demand is 0.47 spaces per seat. Do the math here, that comes out to 18 parking spaces. Again, we have 30. I mentioned that we've done all those counts at McDonald's, 31 other McDonald's. We also count the number of parking spaces. The average, without even considering the size of the buildings or any independent variables, the average average maximum parking demand over all 31 of those was 18 spaces on Saturday lunchtime. And some of that data is pre-COVID. The drive-thru wasn't quite as popular, so certainly not out of character with other McDonald's in the Northeast. If I do the math per building size, because a lot of the ones that we've done have much larger buildings, they used to have those play places and all that sort of stuff. If I do the math per building size, if I was ITE and doing just McDonald's, the way they do it, it would be 4.66 spaces per 1,000 square feet, which is 14 parking spaces. So again, we're just in that under 20 realm. Of all of the 31 that I've done in the Northeast, most cars parked at any of these McDonald's at any one single time was 30. And it was at a McDonald's on Broadway and Route 1 South pre-COVID, and it's the busiest McDonald's ever. They had the highest traffic numbers and the highest parking. It's a 97-seat store, and it's over 5,000 square feet, so it's much bigger than this store. 3 times the number of seats, almost 3 times the number of seats, and the most of all of them was 30. We have 30 here. So for there not to be enough parking here, this would have to become essentially the busiest McDonald's in the Northeast, which I don't think is going to be the case. If I take that 30 and use the square square footage and the seats. I actually had the number of seats in Broadway. I would give you the seats for the other 31, but a lot of times we don't know how many seats are in there. If I break it down per square footage and seats, 5.88 spaces per 1,000 square feet, based on the Broadway one maximum, would translate to 18 spaces here, again, right there under 20. And that 97 seats would be 0.31 per seat, which would translate to 12 here. So, no matter which way you slice it, you're looking at 12 to 18 parking spaces used up at any one time maximum. And if this becomes the busiest McDonald's in New Jersey, you still have enough, 30. So that covers, that's it for the parking, and I think your traffic engineer agrees on that parking number. Drive-through queuing, I think this is the last on-site section. The entire system here, the drive-through system, has a capacity of 16 cars. You have 8 cars can fit between where you order your food and that crosswalk that leads into the building. And you can fit an additional 4 behind that for a total of 12 before you're out onto the street and creating any sort of issues. Our 31 McDonald's, we've seen anywhere between 60 and 75% of the traffic uses the drive-through. So I put together a queuing analysis, assuming that 75% use the drive-through, max, throughput at the drive-through. And this is based on it's a statistical formula where you put in the traffic volume and service time, and it calculates the probability of the queue exceeding X amount of vehicles. So the 95th percentile queue, which is what we typically use for design in this location, will be 4 vehicles behind that order board, which is consistent with what we've seen when we've gone out and looked at these double order board restaurants. 4 spaces, again, 12, you can fit 8 before you hit the crosswalk on site, and 12 before you hit the street. The probability of exceeding 8 spaces is 0.18%, and the probability of exceeding 12 spaces and backing out on the street is 0.01%. So statistically, again, you can see a theme here. I go through the statistical and the actual reality that we've seen. The statistical analysis shows that there's certainly more than enough drive-through queuing. Our research at other McDonald's, the average stack behind the order board, the average maximum stack, if you do the math, is 6.73 cars, and that's a single order board. Obviously, going to the double, the whole point of the double order board is to pull that queue from behind the order board and put it between the order board and the windows. Every single one of these that we've looked at before they've switched to the side-by-side ordering, there's a line of cars at the order board, and then there's a huge gap of pavement, and then there's one guy at the window picking up his food or paying. So the point is to pull these cars into the drive-through system. They can take the orders faster and pull them through. But even absent that, in the single order board, we still only saw a maximum of 7 behind, or an average maximum of 7 behind there. 3 locations, we've actually gone back and done the counts after they switched from the single to the double, and the average went down to 3.6 vehicles behind the order boards, and the most we saw at any of them stacked behind the order boards was 6. And I believe that was one of the times when the McRib was back, so that might have something to do with it. So again, the queuing system we think is more than adequate. You're not going to have any issues in terms of backups onto the street or blocking any of the traffic. And just to revisit Broadway, our busiest one, the most that they ever had in their drive-through system at one time was 15 cars. We can fit 16. So again, even if you match the busiest McDonald's that we've seen in the Northeast, this works. I think that covers all the stuff that's in the traffic impact study in terms of what was in the report. I'll add on the DOT. Obviously, we need a major access permit for this property. We have not submitted that application yet because obviously we're having some feedback with the public and the board, which is the way it should work. We're making some tweaks and changes to the plan. DOT doesn't move at a very swift pace, so we want to make sure that the plan we get them is the one that we want them to review and not have to start back over. Oh, we changed this, we changed that. So that's why we haven't submitted yet. But we did have a pre-application meeting with them, and that gives us the opportunity to share the plans and share what we're doing and get feedback on any issues they see or problems that they see. So we had that meeting in August 22nd. They were very happy with the access configuration. They like it when we remove driveways from the highway, so we're going from 2 to 1, so they're very happy with that. They did reiterate that we need to keep that 100-foot corner clearance from Dayton Road, so we moved the driveway as far as we can towards Dayton Road. We discussed the crosswalk relocation, moving it to the other side of Hillview. They agreed, thought that was a good idea. They did ask us to make it 10 feet wide. That was a request of the DOT. Make sure it's properly lit, and they were in agreement with the rapid flashing beacons, which are become kind of the gold standard for unsignalized crossings. They work really well. And that was really it in terms of comments. They didn't really have anything negative to say. Obviously, when they get the application, they'll look deeper into the lighting and drainage and technical details. But overall, they had very positive feedback on the application. So now I will pull up a couple exhibits that I know we want to look at. The first one, at the end of Mr. Duarte's testimony, we were discussing that Mr. Maltz requested the turning exhibit for cars pulling into the drive-thru. I'll pull that up on the screen. This is the passenger vehicle going into the inside drive-thru lane, which is obviously the more difficult maneuver. You can clearly see that that's no problem and no issue. It's not wholly different from somebody coming in and having to turn sharply into a parking space.
Can we mark this as, I believe, Mr. Brewer up to A7?
Okay, do I have a copy, a hard copy of this exhibit? I thought it was only up to A6. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Harold, if you want a hard copy, we can certainly give you that. The next was where the truck is going to park. There was a lot of discussion. So this will be A7. Let me show you where it is. This, it's essentially the same as the truck turning exhibit, but we show the truck backing to where the ideal parking location is for it. I was zooming in so everybody can see it better because it's not kind of washed out on that screen.
Okay, this second one is A8. The first one was A7, this is A8.
Now, one difference that you will see in the plan sets themselves haven't been updated, but the board requested that we narrow this from 15 feet to 12 feet, so that's shown here and it works. And this has been tightened up to more enforce that left turn only coming out of the driveway. But the red outline is the ideal spot for the truck to lay in and park when he unloads. Well, not necessarily the red, but where the truck is inside the red outline. If there's vehicles parked in these 3 spaces but not up here, he may pull forward a little bit farther. I mean, obviously, it's annoying for them to have to move the truck to let somebody out, so they're going to try to park in a place where there aren't cars. These are the least desirable parking spaces. I would suspect that they'll rarely be occupied by anybody, so I don't think this is going to be an issue. This is McDonald's standard operating procedure. They have over 13,000 restaurants in the United States. I think they have it figured out by now. I'd say maybe 30% of those rebuilds that we've done had a loading area, and we removed it because it wasn't being used. It was basically there were crates stored there, or weeds growing up through cracks in it. They don't use the loading areas. This is the way they do it, and they've had success and had no issues with it. But that was one of the things that we wanted to show is where it would park, and then the final exhibit will be what happens if a car comes through when the guy's there. So we've got that exhibit as well.
A9.
Is it 8? Did you skip 8? Again, I'll zoom in, and you can see when he's there, passenger vehicle doesn't even have to go over the striping here. They have no problem making it around the truck.
Just to be clear, hard copies we provided in this document.
Yes.
Yeah, they're over there. So those were the couple of exhibits that everybody was asking Mr. Duarte to pull up, and we thought instead of him introducing new exhibits, it should come from me. Hopefully that's a little clearer, and the same, the aisle width is the same, so if the truck decided there was nobody parked in these spaces and he was sitting over here, you could make it around. If he wanted to sit in, wherever makes the most sense at the particular time he makes the delivery, it doesn't stop site circulation. And he's obviously going to try to avoid having to block a parked vehicle. It doesn't seem to be an issue with the other 13,000. I don't see why it would be here.
Thank you, Mr. Peregoy. We'll sit on this side, I guess, for board questions, and then we'll flip around when the public comes up.
I submitted 2 reports. Traffic review number 1.
I'm sorry, sir.
Excuse me. I submitted 2 reports for this review reports for this project. June 21st, and then based on the revised plans, October 18th. I concur with the calculations that were performed by Mr. Peregoy, the trip generation assignments. I did disagree with the pass-by patterns. He revised his second report to comply with what I requested, which actually made some of the analysis worse, but I'm satisfied with the analysis that he did. He did provide tonight the turning template for the passenger vehicles coming inbound to the site to go to either the drive-through lanes. They did that's to shift the driveway, speedwell driveway, as much as they could towards Dayton to soften that turn into the drive-through lanes. What I would like to, he did provide a great deal of information, background on studies he's done at other McDonald's. These are the types of things that traffic engineers try and do to come up with good numbers for a particular site. One thing I'm curious about, considering Mr. Peregoy, all the data that you gathered from those more than 30 sites, I hope you're going to submit that trip generation and parking generation information to the IT to let them include it in their statistical base.
Yeah, we should.
Because that's the type of information they look for. What I would like to ask, which gets away from all the theoretical, not theoretical, actually the actual statistical information, is in your testimony in your report, indicate that about 2/3 of the traffic now generated by this type of use goes through the drive-thru. Used to be 50% or less, which I recall, is now about 2/3. Considering that, about how long does it take for someone coming through a drive-thru to go to the order board and then get processed food, pick up your order? About how long does it take to process somebody through?
Well, the research that McDonald's has done on these side-by-side drive-thrus is that it has the throughput from between 150 and 180 cars per hour. So using the lower number, that's how I figured out the service time at the order point. In terms of time actually processing through, we haven't timed that. There is a publication, a fast food publication that gives some of those statistics. The problem is with them, it's called InTouch Insight. It's pretty interesting information, but they're not only looking at the peak hours. So when the store is really busy and there's a lot of people in the drive-thru, you're going to get through it much faster than you are at 2 o'clock in the morning, or well, I guess this one won't be open, but later at night when they're not as urgent. So, but what this suggests is that the average time spent in the queue is 237.77 seconds at McDonald's.
Let's say that again.
So 4 minutes or so.
It takes about 4 minutes per car to go through.
Which sort of makes logical sense, I guess. You're moving up incrementally. Theoretically, at that 150, you're getting 24 seconds per lane through the order board. So call it 30 seconds. You move one position up every 30 seconds. That's 8 cars. 8 queued positions, sort of makes sense?
In about what time frame? What I'm getting at.
If it takes 4 minutes to get through them, from the time you pull up and stop to the time you get your food, the average time according to this is 4 minutes.
Well, just on simple math, if we're talking about 1 hour, and it takes 4 minutes for one car to get through, and you only got one pickup point, that would be 15 cars in an hour. So,
Yeah, but the cars, more cars are going through, you're processing them it doesn't take 4 minutes for one car, it takes 4 minutes from the time you get into the process. The window's pumping them out at one every 20 seconds, and the orders are coming in at one every 24 seconds.
that's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah. I thought you meant the total time input, which is something that is, very.
Now, if the queue was exceeded, and spilled out towards Speedwell, what would occur on the street? And this would just not only be for spilling out on the street at Speedwell, but also if somebody's coming southbound on Speedwell, wants to stop to make a left turn in, doesn't have a gap, what's going to happen to the southbound flow?
You're saying if in that 0.01% where the 13th car gets there, he would, well, you have a parking lane on Speedwell, so it's an extra wide northbound lane, so that 13th car actually wouldn't walk through traffic. And then generally, if I'm going to the drive-through to get McDonald's and I look and see the last car's backed up to the street, I'm probably just going to keep going and stop. I can't imagine that you so desperately need your chicken nuggets that you're going to sit in the middle of a state highway.
Either that or I assume you wouldn't go to the drive-up, you'd park.
Yeah, or you would go park.
Okay, then once again, and I believe you touched on this, when we were talking about the gap study, and I would just like to note to the public that's here, the gap study was not originally done in the first traffic report. It was something that I requested specifically because I'm familiar with Speedwell Avenue. During the rush hour periods, it's very long queues. The gaps are formed by signals along the roadway, which break up the flow. It tends to platoon it in groups, which affords people the ability to get in and out of the side streets or driveways. That's why I asked for the gap study, because the calculations in the capacity analysis are based on computer analysis. The gap study is based on an analysis of exactly what's truly occurring on the street. It's telling you this is what's happening, these are how many gaps, these are how long the gaps are, and which directions. And that's why I requested that analysis. He did perform it. I asked for it to be summarized in a certain format that I could easily understand. Mr. Peregoy provided that to me, and I'm satisfied with the results that he provided. And I think many of the comments that I had in my report, I think were indicated was satisfactorily addressed.
Yeah, I tried to touch on the list.
Mr. Ryan, do you have any comments?
Madam Chair, I have no questions for this witness.
Okay, and Ms. Leheny?
Yeah, just could you remind everyone how many times a week does the tractor trailer come to the site?
Sure, it's two deliveries per week.
2 deliveries per week, and how long does each delivery take, more or less, or there's an average?
30 to 40 minutes.
Okay, that's my only questions for right now. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Rockenblood?
Not sure whether this falls under the scope. It looks like you can do a left-hand turn in both exits. If you left in at Dayton, or you left out of McDonald's lot, you can make a left.
Yes.
Out of abundance of safety and perhaps convenience for everyone else behind that person who's going to make a left. What if we made, just fabricating something here, left turn only from Dayton, right turn only from McDonald's lot?
In other words, this way, someone who wants to come into McDonald's is really gonna come in through the Speedwell entrance, not through Dayton. No kidding. And how are they gonna do that if someone's trying to make a left turn at the same time? It just gets very congested. It seems like it'd be easier to force them to go out on Dayton and make a left from there, because it's no block the box.
Well, see, the reason, one of the reasons that I think that having that access to Dayton makes sense is because of that exact situation. So you have the ability to have a relief valve to outlet that traffic to another spot. So if somebody is rudely waiting for way too long to make the left out of the McDonald's driveway, I can circulate around and go out to Dayton and make my right. Or if I know I have to make a left for whatever reason, I can go out to Dayton and where it's going to be easier with the do not block the box. So rather than restrict it, I think giving the flexibility makes more sense. But ultimately, it's going to be whatever the DOT tells us. Whatever we decide in this room isn't going to matter.
I understand. That's why I don't know those basic questions.
Yeah. Good question.
I'm done. Thank you.
So, you provided some numbers on level of service,
Yes.
gap, and actual exiting.
Yes. I feel like there was a lot more numbers than that.
Right, that's what I focus on. I'm trying to wrap my head around traffic.
Yes.
Okay. I think you also said 710 in and out of this facility.
Per day. That's the daily volume.
Per
And
day.
That has nothing to do with the traffic analysis. It's really,
Just a general McDonald's.
it's not anything, but the public had asked what the daily volume was, and that's the best.
Correct. So, between all of the level of service numbers, the gap numbers, and the actual exiting numbers, if I'm just doing some quick math, I don't come close to the 710 in and out per day. How do I do that?
I don't know how you could. I mean, the daily, we don't know the hours of operation, all those, again, it's a generic fast food restaurant with drive-through. Some of them could be 24 hours, some of them could, might be open for, some of them might be Wendy's that were only open for lunch, so it's an average. But it comports with what McDonald's expectations would be for a location like this in terms of number of vehicles per day.
Yeah, so maybe I'm just not understanding, because I don't care about the hours, whether it's 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Right, but that would make it daily.
Exactly. What I'm focusing more on is the 710 per day, in and out.
Right.
So now I'm trying to figure out, during the day, the hours of operation, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., where do those 710 cars fall? Because if I look at your levels of service and your actual exiting during the morning peak and evening peak, forget the weekend right now, I don't see how those numbers get me to the 710 per day. And again, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but somewhere during the day, you've got to get to that 710, right?
I mean, you don't have to, but that's the.
But if that's what you're telling me, if that's what you're telling me, oh, sorry. Yeah.
There's really no way that you can get from the peak hour to the daily. It's a separate count. The ITE, people report to the ITE. I did counts at Popeyes, a McDonald's, a Chick-fil-A, whatever it is. And here's how many cars were in the peak, morning peak hour, the evening peak hour, and here's how many were throughout the day. The busiest, they average the busiest, and that's the way the numbers come. So there's no mathematical way to get from the peak hours to the daily. It just is what it is.
Yeah, I can't get my head wrapped around that. Sorry. I went to Michigan State, not Virginia Tech.
It's a lot of statistics in that book, and I'm not big into the statistics. I like the information it gives me, but how they calculate it was never my favorite. Standard deviations and all that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, my comment or question is related to that to some degree, and we're at our third meeting now. And I don't think we ever heard how many patrons this McDonald's could handle or would have in any particular day. And I think we were told a couple times we were going to get that information, and we never did. So how many people will come into that McDonald's on any given day.
The best projection is 710 cars.
I know, but
I don't know.
so let me just back up. Whoever's gonna open this McDonald's, and I don't know who the real owner is, they had to do some kind of analysis on this location because they're in it to make money. So without knowing how many patrons they're gonna have every day, they probably never could figure out how much money they're gonna make from this McDonald's.
No, I understand. They don't say that.
So isn't that number out there someplace in your files, in your investigation, in your analysis? Did somebody do this analysis to determine? You can ask me.
Yes, McDonald's obviously has a ballpark number of what they estimate for these stores. They do that. They don't share that with me. I can't use that anyway. It's meaningless to me. I use the traffic engineering numbers. I told McDonald's, my traffic engineering numbers say 710. They said, yeah, that's right in the range of what we expect. It fits. 710 cars would be probably have more people transactions because, 3 people go in a car at lunch and it's 3, you know what I mean? So 750 transactions, 800 would be 710 cars. It matches their numbers. So then they don't have like a specific number, like we're gonna have 741.6 people. It's a ballpark range, and the trip generation matches.
I totally understand where you're coming from. I still think somebody in the team had to do some better research as to how much money's going to be made here. Because that's what it's going to come down to, and it's got to be based on volume, and that's the only way it's going to be figured out.
Sure. I've been working for McDonald's for my whole career for 24 years. I've been doing McDonald's. They've never shared one of their market studies or how much money they make. It's their information, but what it all comes down to is how many cars are going to come in and out, and my information matches their information. They're not going to share. That's proprietary information. I don't know how they do that research, and I'm sure I do work for Wendy's and Chick-fil-A and Popeyes and Raising Cane's. I'm sure they don't want me having that knowledge to share with those other competitors. It's not something that they would give me. But if my numbers match theirs, I think that's the answer.
I just think it should be more voluntary information for all of us that are here. The amount of line that's going to go through that site. And I know we don't have an exact number, but we should have some kind of percentage. The other thing that's bothering me, and has been bothering me since the engineers spoke, you're telling me that tractor trailer is going to have no issue getting in and out. Based on your diagrams, everything's super tight in there.
And that's a good point. This software, the vehicle tracking software that models these, the Astro turning radius out, basically it's modeling the worst truck driver ever. Like you got in your truck for day one of learning, that's how you drive. If the reality, and we've had to do this before where this analysis didn't work and had to actually hire a truck driver to do it, they can do it, they can maneuver so much easier than this program shows. So if it works even barely here, it's a piece of cake for an experienced truck driver.
Okay.
My questions were covered in testimony.
Most of my questions are, I really don't have a question, I just want you to tell me a little more about queuing. That was the most important for me, because of all these cars driving, at one point you said there were 180 cars per hour that come into McDonald's.
The drive-thru could theoretically handle that. We don't expect that.
Okay.
If you pumped it, if you put an infinite line of cars and said go, it could push through 180 per hour.
Okay, so how many cars can be in the drive-thru picking up at the windows at one time without backing out on the street? Because that's the problem that I foresee.
You could have 16 cars before you hit that crosswalk. This crosswalk behind the drive-thru. So 16 cars fit in that system. 4 more can fit on the site behind that, so 20. So you could have 20 cars on site, unless they're giving away French fries. I doubt you'd see that, but you could have 20 cars on site stacked up in the drive-thru and not back up.
That's what I mean, not backing up. And let's say something does happen and they back up onto the street. What happens then? Who's going to stop that? somebody come out of the store and say, you can't do that, you have to move on? Or would they just go park?
I would think they would just go park and just, I mean, like we were saying before, like, you'd have to really be hankering for some McDonald's to sit in the middle of a state highway in a drive-through queue. I mean, you'd be like, I'm not waiting for that, I'm going to the next place.
It's a question, because that could be a problem on Spicka Avenue.
It would, if that ever happened, it would be, but that would be the case with anything. What if 10,000 people showed up at Friendly's and waited? I mean, that could be anything, but every measure that we have shows that the chances of that happening are so remote. Like I said, 0.01% chance of that next car that still wouldn't block the traffic, but would hang out into the right of way. 31 McDonald's in the Northeast. The busiest one we ever saw had 15 cars in the drive-through system. We fit 16 in before the crosswalk. We could go 20 in the street. So again, if this operated the busiest of 31 McDonald's in the northeastern United States in the past 10 years that I've counted, if this matched those numbers, it's still would work. Parking, drive-through queue, all of it.
Okay, thank you. I do
So
have
that's the
one
best we can do.
I do have one more thing. You mentioned do not block the box. Can you show me where that would be?
Yeah, I believe the police asked for it here at Dayton. See,
Oh, okay.
right?
Okay, I see it.
And that's going to be up to the DOT.
DOT, right, okay, thank you.
I think they may go
How you doing?
Good.
Do we know what usage is in the Dunkin' Donuts count-wise?
The Dunkin' Donuts next
door? Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Do you know anything on Speedwell Avenue that would be close to this as far as in and out? Was Acme that?
Oh, sure. A supermarket? Yeah, it would be way more than this, yes. Probably triple.
Is there any way that you could find that out as a comparison? Is there anything to compare to the numbers that you gave us with an existing business or a business that was there along Speedwell?
Yeah, I mean, I could give you the same projections. I mean, a Dunkin' Donuts, I don't know what size, but if it was the same size as this McDonald's, would be probably double the numbers of McDonald's in the morning, and then nothing in the evening, basically. Yeah, I mean, it's not only a function of the numbers, it's also what kind of use. Is it a destination or is it pass-by? And as I said, this is more of a pass-by use, whereas a supermarket or an Acme or whatever would be a destination. People are going specifically there, they're not just stopping in on the way somewhere else. So there's a couple factors at play there, not just the numbers.
So in your report, I guess you got the information of tractor-trailer traffic on 202 in general. Do you have those? Can you repeat those numbers?
No, the question was the McDonald's deliveries. It was two per week.
Yeah, but about here, I don't know, it doesn't have a page, but it has tractor-trailer trips.
Oh, that's from our counts?
Yeah.
Oh, good question. So this is just the peak hours. This wouldn't be a daily, but we do when we do that capacity analysis that I mentioned, the percentage of trucks is one of the inputs, so that's why we distinguish the trucks. Peak hour, yeah, you had northbound. This is in the morning, 7 tractor trailers in 1 hour. 2 southbound in the morning. So yeah.
And they have nothing to do with McDonald's.
Not at all.
Totally different.
Evening, there was 1 northbound. Yeah, so there are definitely tractor trailers out there too. And then on the Saturday, 2 northbound and southbound. So you have in a peak hour more tractor trailers than McDonald's is going to have in a week.
Now I know there was a concern about the bridge further on 202 northbound by Route 53. Is that an issue with the tractor trailers?
It shouldn't be. It has the height clearance. There's no truck restrictions on that bridge. It has the height clearance that you would need, for a bridge on an interstate highway. It's tight. It feels tight. I mean, if I was a truck driver, I'd probably try to avoid it because it's a little narrow, but it doesn't have any restriction.
And there's different size tractor trailer delivery trucks. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah.
And what size did you analyze here?
This is the biggest that McDonald's can use.
So this is like a 53-foot trailer with.
Biggest one in New Jersey.
But they do have single axle trailers and single axle tractors that are much shorter, like city type trailers?
Sure.
Would that be something that would be in use here, or would they use a full size? I know this is worst case scenario, but can you narrow it down a little bit more?
Generally, I understand their preference is to use the full size. It is, I know they must, because they have urban locations, use smaller ones. If the full size, for whatever reason, physically couldn't make it, they would have to, but in this case, we're showing that it clearly can. So I would think it would be the full size.
Now, how often is your parking space turnover? For somebody who would come in?
The length of time somebody's in the store, less. I mean, if you went in and ate in the restaurant,
right,
maybe you're there for 45 minutes at most. Most people who park nowadays are going in and picking up and leaving, so they're there for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So it's a high turnover of parking spaces. The only people who are parked there, any employees who drive, would be the only people who are there through the day.
Now, I don't know, I think it was brought up, but I don't remember 100. Is those rear parking spots, or those for employees?
Yeah, I think we did say that we could do that, and I see the signs there, so I think we assume that's what that is, that they could be for employees.
So they would be there for a duration of time then?
Right.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Could you bring that down? I want to ask, bring it down so I can see, okay. On the boards here at the bottom, right? You could go how many to the crosswalk, how many cars?
You could fit, if you can see the cursor, from this window to just
down
beyond
here
here
are the
60.
boards, right? Down at the bottom.
From the order
Order
boards.
boards.
From the order boards, 8.
Where are the order boards?
Right here. These two.
Right there, okay. How many cars from there to that crosswalk?
8.
8, 4 and 4.
Yep.
And from there, how many more can you get?
One more would just hang across the crosswalk, and then you can fit 3 more before you're to the sidewalk, really. So 4, you can go 4 more before you're out into the right of way. The 5th guy would be out.
So that's a total of 12, right?
Yes. 12 to the right of way, 13 to the road.
Next question. You said the police or DOT asked for the block the box.
Your police department has for it.
Okay.
But it's DOT's road, so they have to allow it. We're happy to request that.
You mentioned in your study about the number of pedestrians. How many extra pedestrians or new pedestrians have you projected when McDonald's opens?
The ITE just recently started publishing that pedestrian data. That used to only be cars, and the most peak hour pedestrian trips for this McDonald's would be 10. That doesn't necessarily mean they're all crossing Speedwell Avenue. Just 10 pedestrians. They could be walking down Dayton Road. They could be on this side of Speedwell Avenue. So some number less than 10 additional people crossing that crosswalk.
Okay, and your peak was 9 before?
The peak hours, they were, all these papers are mixed up. 7:30 to 8:30 was the mornings that you were asking in the morning.
What's how many?
7:30 to 8:30 is the morning.
Where's 9? 9 you said? So that would be 19, maybe? Okay. Thank you.
I just have a question that actually was brought up by some of the, I'm sorry, questions that were brought up by the public, and I wondered if you took into consideration any school buses or tandem landscape trucks.
I mean, school buses, the site's not really designed for school buses, I wouldn't imagine. They pull in, if a bus trip came and went to McDonald's, I would assume they would just park along the Speedwell Avenue. I mean, I don't see that. No, the Speedwell, right on the front. You can park on Speedwell, nobody does, but you can. And the landscape.
Just real quick, I really request that everybody respected witnesses, everybody's gonna get a chance to talk.
The landscape trucks, I think the difference here versus the Dunkin' is they would use the drive-through here. Like I said, there's way too much parking here, so I think if a guy came in a landscape truck and wanted to lay across 3 spaces in the back and run in and get his McFlurry, he'd be fine. But I would use the drive-through if I had a trailer and a landscape. It'd be a lot easier. I don't know about bus trips to McDonald's. I don't think it's, I remember when I was a kid, we'd go to birthday parties there. It's not the same place anymore, so.
Okay, so, we'll open it up to the public.
Yeah, I just have, I did, board member Bezel, I did communicate with McDonald's, and their information is confidential, but they did give me a range of what they expect at this site to be between 700 and 800 customers a day. Okay?
Which fits 710.
And Mr. Peregoy, there were some questions from the public about the ordinance relating to trucks on Dayton. Can you just address that?
Oh, yeah, Dayton Road's restricted to trucks for through trucks or traveling on Dayton Road. The ordinance does have a stipulation, obviously, for deliveries. If you live on Dayton Road and you order a refrigerator from Home Depot, the guy's gonna come in a truck and has to be able to bring it to you. Same thing goes with McDonald's. Deliveries are exempt. There's no reason that 2 tractor trailers per week is going to create any issues on Dayton Road. I mean, the traffic volumes are so low, you're getting 15 cars an hour. The odds are more than likely the truck's gonna go in and out without even encountering another vehicle. It's a very lightly traveled residential road.
Okay, we don't have any further questions for this witness.
Greg Devine, 91 Sun Valley Way. Just speaking quickly to the Greg, you just spoke about the limitation of 4-ton trucks on Dayton. You actually indicated for deliveries on Dayton. Are you the author of the traffic study, by the way, that got submitted?
Yes.
So you're the one that wrote the address of 415 and 435 Speedwell Avenue is the address of the McDonald's?
That's the address of the property, not the McDonald's. The McDonald's address would be assigned by the town when this is done. It's not.
So it's up to the town to decide on the address if it's a Dayton address or a Speedwell?
Yeah, I think the post office decides. It'll clearly be Speedwell. It's a commercial use facing the state highway.
So it'll be a Speedwell address?
Sure, yes.
Okay, as was the front of the before. So right now, there's nothing limiting deliveries to the McDonald's if it's built by accessing it from Speedwell. You can enter from Speedwell.
Yes.
Deliveries can be made.
Yes.
Okay, if Dayton Road did not exist, and that was just a wooded area, no road, could an alternate design be made which can have deliveries made, accessing and exiting on Speedwell?
Not from McDonald's, I don't believe, no. It's not a big enough property. By the time you get a tractor trailer to turn all the way back around and front out to Speedwell, you have no place left to put it.
Well, right now, can you scroll down on this, please?
Sure.
Right now, that truck, to make that delivery, can clearly make that turn, and it backs up if it makes a delivery You're saying that truck can't make the elbow turn to go head back up to the top of the screen?
He could get down here, and then this turn would be very tight, but then he's at a U-turn to get back out into Speedwell to make the right, and he'd be coming out at an angle to make the left. I think he'd take out the front half of the building to line himself up properly.
And so they couldn't build closer to the road to make that turn, that wider turn? So they don't have to edge up on the property in the upper right? There's no alternate plan that can have an exit of a trailer remaining within the footprint, not on Dayton.
And maybe it's possible, but it would not be a very good site design, it wouldn't really make any sense. Why, it's not necessary, the Dayton Road exists, it's 2 trucks per week, that's it.
No, I was, it's not the quantity doesn't matter, it's binary, is it permitted or not? Right now, the regulation requires an exception, except for the inconvenience or the not ideal plan of McDonald's. The regulation would prevent it, because McDonald's has an alternate plan it prefers, or another one would be inconvenient. The town would have to interpret the law to say, well, because it's going to be really hard on McDonald's. The town would have to say, and the board, well, because it's not great for McDonald's and it's not ideal, let's not apply the regulation. Because you said it can be done, it's just not ideal or efficient.
You're overthinking the regulations. The regulations, when they restrict trucks on roadways, are to avoid trucks from traversing that roadway to get from point A to point B. It's saying you can't use Dayton Road to cut through someplace or do anything. That regulation does not mean a truck that has business in that particular area can't use that road. It's no through trucks. That's what that stipulation means.
Well, it's not in that area. The regulation and the exception is for Dayton Road delivery along Dayton Road. This is a Speedwell address. It's not on Dayton Road.
It doesn't say Dayton Road. It says any of the, here's a list of streets that trucks are not allowed to go through. This doesn't mean that you can't have deliveries on those streets. That's what the exception is.
Trucks over 4 tons gross weight are hereby excluded from the following designated streets. Dayton Road.
Correct.
Entire length.
Yes.
Right. The exception is they're making deliveries of merchandise along the streets from which they're excluded.
There you go.
Right. So we have a Speedwell address, a Speedwell building.
You were doing things correctly, he was interrupting, so I'm saying, let him finish his question and then answer.
So again, you can have a delivery truck delivered from Speedwell, alternate plans could be made which don't require the exception. And would it be inconvenient or would it be ideal?
It would not make sense. It would not be a good design for this piece of property to not utilize the large amount of frontage on Dayton.
So, to overcome the regulation, the board would have to say, well, we'll give the exception and call it that because of an inconvenient and less than ideal plan, as opposed to a straight binary, no, they have this.
No.
The board would have to determine that the plan overcomes the regulation. Okay, so.
The board does not.
Can you let him answer?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
The board does not have to give any exceptions or anything. It's written into the ordinance that vehicles making local deliveries can use Dayton Road. The site has more frontage on Dayton Road than it has on Speedwell Avenue. The regulation is very clear that trucks making deliveries in this area can use Dayton Road.
Right, but in your own words,
Please.
in your own words.
The intent of the regulation is trucks going from point A to point B can't use these roads to get from point A to point B.
Right, so trucks entering from Speedwell onto a Speedwell address, under your premise, would be using Dayton Road as a pass-through to go from point A and B, as opposed to having to go on Dayton Road to deliver anything on Dayton Road.
Are you saying trucks other than McDonald's trucks would do this? I'm not following you. This is only a McDonald's delivery truck.
Right.
Would exit onto Dayton Road.
Right.
Which is allowed because they have frontage on Dayton Road and it's making a local delivery. That's it. It doesn't matter what the address is.
In your traffic report on page 6, there's, I just want to make sure I understand the frequency right. Page 6, there's some percentages. I imagine if this is table 4, the existing versus proposed, I don't know if you'll be able to pull it up.
Yeah, I got it.
Is it possible to pull that up?
No.
Oh, these aren't exhibits?
No.
Traffic study.
They're submitted to the board, they're just not on this computer.
just so if I understand it correctly, if we go along the headers, did you intend for it to say in, out, total for each of AM, PM, and Saturday?
Yeah.
Because right now it says in, out, total, total, in, out, total.
Yep.
Is that an error?
That's a total.
Okay.
Yes.
So also, if I'm interpreting correct, your data to show current, you use data for the small office that is actually active, and what Friendly's would have if it was active.
Yes.
Okay, so even if in this hypothetical that Friendly's was open and functioning, you're saying there would be a 110% increase in the AM trip generation.
I don't have any percentages.
Well, I just divided it, it's going from 32 under your proposed scenario up to 67. So it's more than doubling the frequency of the hypothetical Friendly's in office.
Sure.
The PM is going 90, so it would be 92% increase versus now, which is a hypothetical, which probably double that because Friendly's doesn't exist right now. And your Saturday would be 293% increase in trip generation of cars coming and going in that space.
I'll take your word for it on that.
Well, it's 79, it's an additional of 79 versus the 27, so is that right, that those, at least doubling, potentially tripling the trips coming in and out of that space?
Sure. I mean, that doesn't really matter, but sure. If it only generated one car existing, then it would be 1,000% more. I mean, the percentages don't matter. It's the number of vehicles that affects the analysis.
Sure, but I'm comparing your actual projections of actual vehicle trips likely to happen versus a non-existing restaurant, which you added numbers for, so.
Correct.
At a minimum, it's double likelihood against versus now, it's much more because Friendly's doesn't have any traffic.
Correct. And my analysis didn't take any credit for that, so the percentage increase I analyzed is infinity percent. Doesn't matter.
I thought they were saying 50% is a problem. I don't understand the chart. So can we go to page 12 under page 12 of your report? You had indicated that there's the bottom paragraph. I think you indicated that sort of the third line down that the Borough of Morris Plains will not experience any significant degradation in operating conditions with the construction of the project, and then you went on. What is the definition of significant versus other?
In terms of what the DOT calls significant is 100 peak hour trip increase. And that's why I pointed out the percentages don't matter. All three of those are less than 100. So if we weren't changing these driveways, we wouldn't even need a DOT permit. They'd say, you don't generate enough traffic for us to care, and they'd give us what's called a letter of no interest. The only reason we need the permit is because we're doing the work. And that's how all the traffic analysis.
That's the, I guess that's the approval, that's the total DOT kind of approval you need for the whole flow, that's that package?
If you don't do any work in there right away, and you don't add more than 100 trips, they say it's insignificant traffic change, you don't care, and they just give you a letter.
So the word
You could do
degradation.
that.
Sorry. The word degradation is more, it's more tied to functionality than like actual physical characteristics of the premise and the roads.
It's the only definition of significance that is out there. The conclusion means that you won't have a significant degradation in the operation. Take that to mean whatever.
Okay, thanks.
My name is, excuse me, is Penny Jones, Jones, and I live at 3 Corson Way in Morris Plains, and I may be amongst the oldest person, I may be the oldest person in this room. So I probably have a different kind of question from.
You have the best shoes.
I know, they're very cool shoes. I have them in green too. Skechers, by the way. At any rate, I have to make one statement to lead into my question. The statement is that yesterday, my husband and I had to go to Walmart at a local shopping center to purchase something. And when we left, it just moment because I spotted a McDonald's in the shopping center there. The eureka moment was there are no drive-through lanes in this at this particular McDonald's because it's in a shopping center, a strip mall, if you will. So my question is this, and I have been at only 2 meetings, and I'm not into statistics or numbers or any of that kind of thing, but I am curious about this. And it may have been addressed earlier. Did McDonald's ever consider not having a drive-through at this particular restaurant? It's a two-part question, and it may be irrelevant, and it may be a rhetorical question in a sense, so I don't want to keep people here too long, but was it ever considered, and would it make any difference with this whole business of traffic, which seems to be a big concern to a lot of people in this room? So it's kind of a question for McDonald's and for you, the traffic gentleman.
The question is, did they consider not running drive-throughs? I can't speak for them, but I'm certain that they did not. Like, their business model is this. Those locations that don't have drive-throughs, they'd like to get rid of and get ones with drive-throughs in the same spots. It's the way that it's going.
Thank you. And it may be food for thought for McDonald's in the future if they ever run into the same kind of situation again. I don't know. Food for thought. Pun intended. Let's go on.
Daniel Conway, 3 Greenwood Road, Morris Plains, New Jersey. You mentioned you worked on 31 other McDonald's.
Probably more than that in my career, but 31 when I had the statistics available to me.
Okay. How many of those, what's the closest one to here or to this location? Roughly.
Probably Florham Park, I would think.
Okay. Which one would be the most?
I apologize. Go ahead.
So Florham Park, in my opinion, doesn't match the location here. That's more of a 4-lane highway, in some cases 5 or 6 lanes. They switched to a 2-lane, 2 drive-through location there. So I would just say that that's a little significantly different than this one.
We're gonna ask questions. That's an opinion, but questions for him? Okay.
Which of the 31s that you worked on would you consider most similar to this location?
You had asked that, I went through, you asked that for the first year, I went through and looked, how many were on just 2-lane roads, and some of them I can't remember, but I came up with pretty quickly off the bat, 6 of them. Mr. Dwight mentioned Bayonne, Myrtle Avenue in Booton, Monmouth Road in West Long Branch, which is a total residential neighborhood, Delsey Drive in Malaga, is that how you say Malaga? That is. Marshall Hill Road in West Milford, Essex Street in Hackensack, and Broadway and Bayonne, all 2-lane roads, sort of similar to this, and one that I didn't work on where I live in Piscataway is also one 2-lane road. So they're in different settings all over the place.
Appreciate that. How many of those were new builds?
These, none of them were. I wouldn't have the data if they were new builds. This was remodels.
All 31 were new remodels?
Yeah, that's how I got the parking and traffic data from them, is because they were existing McDonald's, and we decided to remodel.
My apologies. So none that you've worked on were new builds?
Well, I've done several new builds, but I'm not following. These are ones that I did counts at that existed, so if there was a new build, I couldn't have possibly counted them before they built it.
Respect that, I didn't ask for county, I was just curious, how many McDonald's in this area, Morris County, have you worked on that are new builds?
Oh, Morris County? I can't think of any off the top of my head. But I'd say I've done probably a dozen new builds. Most recent one in Somerset.
Of the rebuilds, were they remodeled because of traffic issues?
Yeah, traffic issues.
mentioned earlier that through McDonald's here tonight, they referenced 700 to 800 transactions per day.
Projected.
Projected. Thank you. Is it the model of McDonald's to continue to push drive-through traffic over in-store eating, based on what you've worked on for McDonald's in the past?
I don't know what their intentions are, I just know it's happening, that more people are using the drive-through. COVID really jump-started that.
In your report, on page 1, it said manual traffic movements. Is that an actual hand count? Or do you have a machine or a tool or something that's counting the turns?
It's a hand count, well, it's hand count with an electronic board, yes, somebody sitting on there.
What is the percentage of error of that tool?
None that I'm aware of, it's not that difficult.
But there is potential error given that it's manually created or manually produced.
Sure, can somebody miss a click here and there or do an extra one? Yeah, of course. It wouldn't be significant.
So on page 1 again, you mentioned trip generation. It was prepared utilizing trip generation data published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers.
Yes.
What is that backup? Meaning, and I'm asking for a little bit of education so I understand, what I guess I'm hard understanding here is we're using data from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, right? And that's kind of a big group of engineers that get together and share data across the country, the state,
Country.
across the
Yeah,
country.
it's traffic engineers, and Mr. Maltz joked before that I should submit this data to them. It's traffic engineers submit the data, they compile it, they're based in Washington DC. They compile it, they're big manuals this big, that have all these statistics of all these different land uses, in this case, fast food traffic is one of the most studied ones.
Does that study break down the true generation based on population density?
No.
So it's just a generic of the entire country.
Yes.
Is it possible that that number is too low considering the location we're in?
No, I testified that that number, I believe, is too high. 31 McDonald's that I've counted in the Northeast, which the ITE does say, if you have local data, it's better than our data, show that the numbers will be lower. But I, again, want to look at the worst case scenario and test to make sure it works.
Appreciate that. So just out of curiosity, will you be submitting your information for us to review to the board? Your analytics?
It's in the traffic.
Of the 31 stores?
Oh, no, that was just informational. I didn't use it in the traffic report. I just wanted to explain that I'm over projecting in the traffic report.
Forgive me, I'm confused. You use the transportation engineers.
Yes, the worst case.
And you're using that as the worst case. But your testimony then is that you really used your own as to justify it's more conservative. That their analysis is more
I didn't use my own. I testified that I think the numbers that I analyzed in this report are higher than we're really going to see, and here's why.
Just a question about your truck. This is really a simple question. Dayton Road, is there any restriction or will be there restrictions on the truck parking on Dayton Road? If it pulls into the site and the site's packed on lunchtime because they got held up at another location, and they look at it and go, the only place I can park is Dayton Road. Will we have any restrictions?
Yeah, there's no parking signs on Dayton Road, so it's already there.
Okay? But we understand that that's not always followed, right? Like,
What other restriction would you want?
well, no parking, but
That's
fair enough. Fair enough. You mentioned the parking layout, from a traffic flow perspective. What were the standards used to come up with your usage numbers? So you said, and I don't remember the exact number, that you really don't need more than spots at any time?
Oh, the parking, number
For
of
the
parking
parking.
spaces. I did two ways. One was the ITE, just like the chip generation, they have another big manual parking generation. I referenced that, and then I also referenced the 31 other ones that I've actually done physical parking counts at. And no matter which way you slice it, this has enough parking. And of the 31 in New Jersey that I counted, the most we ever saw parked at one time was 30. So 1, 2, 3, 4 peak hours, well, 4 2-hour periods, so 8 hours times 31 stores. And any instantaneous one time in Rahway, I think 2017, there were 30 cars parked. Other than that, every other number was done. We have 30 spaces here.
Does that account for people eating in their car?
It's just a car parked there. I didn't look what they were doing in their car.
Well,
It could have been parked going to the place next door. It's just the number of cars parked in the lot.
I asked that because of my own statement, so I apologize. That's why I asked the question, is you could go to Florida Park, and people sit in their car and eat all day. That's why I asked the question, so I apologize. In your presentation, on page 2, you mentioned Speedwell Avenue. You referenced Speedwell Avenue as one lane both directions. That's not reality. It's just not. If you look at Speedwell Avenue at 7:30 to 9 a.m., it's at least 2 lanes.
Where it does open up for the turn lanes at the signals, but across the site frontage here, it's striped for one lane in each direction.
It may be striped for that, so Mike can go, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the morning, by the railroad tracks, 2 lanes are allowed to go straight. And those cars can remain, and do remain, side by side, all the way to the traffic light.
Back from, coming.
From the railroad track heading south.
All the way, well, the post office has the striped parking spaces, so I assume where that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, sure, what happens, traffic will step up where they can.
I guess my point is in your presentation, you're calling it a 2-lane road. Very rarely is it actually 2 lanes, usually 3.
At this specific driveway location, it's 1 lane in each direction. There's no ambiguity. It's a double yellow center line, and that's it. That's the way it's striped.
There, again, I just respectfully disagree that if I took a video camera and videoed the next 3 days at 8 a.m., there's gonna be 3 lanes. All the way back to Hilton.
Okay.
That's all right.
Another thing on your presentation, page 2, you referenced Speedwell Avenue again. The project site on Speedwell is commercial, all the sites, other sites being is commercial, with Borough School located opposite the project just north of Dayton. Were you aware that directly across the street is a highly trafficked pre-K kindergarten?
Yes.
Okay. Was that calculated into the trip travel on that location?
Yes, I counted all the cars. I didn't say, oh, I'm not counting that one, this is a daycare car. I counted all the cars.
So to that point, you mentioned existing traffic volumes. You used manual turning movement. In your presentation tonight, you referenced 1,300 cars trips per day. Is that accurate? In both directions?
The two-way volume on Speedwell is 1,300 to 1,400 ballpark an hour.
An hour?
An hour, not a minute.
Even worse. I didn't see that in the report. That's why I asked the question.
You'd have to add up the numbers. In the figure 2 in the back, it shows the volumes. If you add up the northbound volumes and the southbound volumes, that's.
I missed that. I apologize.
Well, I wouldn't do it here if I was reading it.
There's only so much I can read. In your manual traffic movement, I noticed May 1st to the 24th, you had 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., then 4:30 to 6:30. Did I miss the lunch hour traffic movement?
Yeah, we did Saturday lunch. We find to be the busiest. We've done again all these. We've done lunch counts, and they tend to be lower than the morning and evening, or maybe on par. But the roadway volumes are much higher. So we're looking for that time.
The reason I ask that is traffic on Speedwell, and one of your analysis only has the afternoon traffic from, I think it's 4 to 6 or 7, something like that. But the 2 o'clock time, 2:30, is when traffic builds. That's when it's literally stopped. Most days, because of schools, because of pre-kindergarten. Why wasn't that analyzed?
Because that's the time when the delivery guy is gonna be there, because nobody's at McDonald's. Again, I'm looking for when the road's its most and McDonald's is at its most. And if it works with that, then one or the other being at their highest, it'll work better. You know, I went the worst case. So, yeah, it's school time, the road probably not quite as busy as the PM rush hour, maybe it's close, but McDonald's is not doing nothing. The PM rush hour is busier usually than the school, but let's say it's the same, but McDonald's is also busy for dinner. So that, I looked at that, if it works there, then it's gonna work at 2:30.
Respectfully, I disagree. I think 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. McDonald's would be pretty busy, to be honest. People come out of school and they go feed their kids for different reasons, before sports and other things. So that's why I would ask, maybe we should consider checking those times as part of our analysis. The level of service. This is good stuff. So there's a qualitative evaluation of capacity based upon quantitative calculations related to empirical values. You gotta love that. Exactly. To me, and this is why I'm asking the question, empirical value meaning taking based on what we know, right? And what we know is McDonald's. There's 13,000 McDonald's across the country, right? I am, as other people have mentioned, concerned that until recently we found out that the 7,800 transactions a day. Is there any way to get more detail about Broadway? How many are they doing? How many of a McDonald's at this square footage? Because that seems to be the net calculation that we're working off of. Do they do? I would like to ask if that's possible to get.
Yeah, just, I mean, for my end, it's basically, it's the building size.
Building size and traffic volumes.
Yeah, the traffic volumes right to the building size. So Rahway is a 5,092 square foot building. So do the math, this is a 3,036. You do that math times 710, and you'll be able to, the numbers will take a little bit. Well,
Does that store outperform based on its size, or is it below average based on its size? In terms of transactions or documents, do you know that?
no, I don't have the transaction development, so I just know it was one of the busiest stores
Okay.
that we saw. Well, the actually, the busiest.
In the level of service analysis, you mentioned D or better at peak hours, at lunchtime, dinner. What is the lowest value? What is the lowest level? F.
If it's more, if the delay is more than 50 seconds, it's a level of service F, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a traffic issue, it just means that a driver is waiting for longer than would be comfortable.
So we're at D today. One of the locations or timeframes mentioned in your report is already at E, right?
Saturday.
And based on the DOT's projections, a 2 to 4% increase over the next 2 years.
That's included in that.
Understood. That's just 2 years. We could expect probably worse. Yes?
No, you expect that, that's what I did.
Fair enough. What are the main factors to increasing traffic on an arterial road like this? What are the biggest effects?
Well, I don't understand.
Residential bills?
Are you asking in the world, like, I don't know, can you narrow this down to this application?
It's a traffic question.
Yeah, but as to what? As to this site, or just generally anywhere in the world?
We can call it this site. I'm talking about Speedwell Avenue. So what would be the biggest cause of increase in traffic at a location like this? Is it and let me try to clean it up a little bit. Is it a residential construction of multifamily units? Is it a commercial building being built with 600,000 or 700,000 square feet?
Well, 600,000 or 700,000 square feet of commercial would generate a lot more traffic than this McDonald's. Residential is a lower traffic generator, but it's all, again, new traffic, residential or residents coming in and new. This McDonald's is going to, by and large, get much of its traffic from people who are already driving up and down Speedwell today anyway. That's why it makes sense here. For a heavily traveled locations, we wanna hide pass-by generated use, that's what we've done here. Not something to bring in traffic.
Again, so I asked that question because we have roughly 600,000 square feet of commercial space coming on board about a mile away, right? How does that affect, or how would that affect traffic at this site?
That's the idea of 2%, those aggressive growth rates that DOT gives, is to sort of encompass that. If there was something being built across the street or right in the immediate area, I would take that specifically into account. When you get a mile away, there's no way to forecast what it's gonna do. That's the point of the growth rates. And wherever you're thinking of, there's probably 5 miles away, 6 more of those. There's development all over, that's why you do the growth rate.
Let's see. So in your table, you suggested that there are 168 turns estimated new per day on your manual turn movement, if my numbers are correct. There's 168.
On the Saturday peak hour,
Just
168 new trips, so that's 86 cars in, 82 out. Presumably the 82 coming out are part of the 86 coming in. So.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Jamie Potkaleski, 31 Borough. Potkalesky. Two quick questions. One, you mentioned that you thought it was unlikely that cars would stack up to wait for their chicken nuggets. Are you familiar at all with the Chick-fil-A on Route 10, where the traffic goes around the entire parking lot?
I am. Are they giving away chicken there? I don't know what's going on. The place is always crowded.
It's not dissimilar from this, in my opinion.
Well, it is because of the brand. Chick-fil-A is newer to this part of the country, so it's got a novelty that I assume will eventually wear off as more of them become. But
They're extending that parking lot to get through this traffic, which is in a parking lot, is causing a problem, regardless.
this is not Chick-fil-A.
I understand. The gap study you mentioned, that was done while there was, obviously during the week, school traffic, business traffic, but an empty vacant lot. What would the gap study reveal when there's traffic at the McDonald's going in and out? What would the gap study then be? And how does that affect all of the other cross streets for people trying to get in and out and across the people?
Well, the gaps are the traffic on speed to
Correct.
see if there's enough.
Sorry.
The gaps are the traffic on speed well to see if it can accommodate the McDonald's. So
The gap study that you mentioned, the times that you mentioned, are what it is currently. Do you know, or have projections of what it will be when McDonald's is there?
I don't understand the question.
So the gaps that you mentioned, it was like a 6-second gap is available. That's what you saw
I
today.
count the number of gaps available and the duration, so there are, however many 7-second gaps available, in the current traffic flow to see if there's enough to get the McDonald's traffic.
I'm asking, what will the gaps be when there's peak traffic going in and out of McDonald's?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to go back when it's open and do another gap study.
And how will that affect the cars on Dayton or any of the other side streets, the hillside across the Hillview across the way, or further down for school traffic coming in and out, trying to get across Speedwell now?
Well, Dayton, we analyzed Dayton, the level of services is a D, so it's okay. And then as you get farther and farther, that traffic spreads out more and more and is less and less impactful.
I'm saying-
Coming out of McDonald's, you're going left and right, so you're splitting it already right there.
I'm saying once McDonald's is in, you don't have any projections of what the gap study will be.
No, I don't think there's any way to do that.
That's all my question. Thanks.
Julie Gould, G-O-U-L-D, 35 Grove Avenue. I'm sorry,
35 Grove Avenue.
You mentioned that the drive-through traffic takes 1 to 3 minutes to get through, based on your projections, I believe.
No, not based on my projections. There's a publication that does studies of fast food restaurants in comparison. And for McDonald's, the time in the system is average of 4 minutes.
4 minutes, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the answer. 4 minutes
Per car.
Thank you. consider that it might be twice as long as what was factored in? Concerned
Maybe,
about?
maybe it is, but this is just an average throughout the day, as I mentioned before. During the peak hours, what we're worried about, that's when they're maximizing the speed. At 11 o'clock at night, if you go get a hamburger and french fries, it's gonna take probably 10 minutes before you get your food, because there's no urgency, and they don't have as much pre-made. So these numbers don't really help USA Today or this, but it's information.
You jokingly mentioned that the plan breaks if McDonald's gives food away. Have you considered the extensive marketing promotions that McDonald's does? For example, every September 18th, they give away cheeseburgers for 50 cents. Every Friday, they give away free medium fries. Were those increases in traffic due to their marketing promotions factored into the studies that were done? No. Was it considered for the exit onto Speedwell to have 2 lanes separating the exit left and those exiting right, similar to what Duncan has for much more modest traffic?
No, I don't, to me, that creates a dangerous condition, because the person who's trying to make a right is blocked by the person making a left, and vice versa. It's better this way.
Okay. You had mentioned that the spillover traffic, when that situation happens and inevitably traffic backs up because people will want to turn left to get back onto Speedwell, you said that the solution is to exit off through Dayton. Can you walk me through how that happens if traffic's backed up through the window, how traffic would get around on here to get to Dayton with it being safe?
I'm saying that if there's a car, say there's 2 cars, because one car is going to be out on the sidewalk, they're going to pull out as far as they can. And the second car's here, and I get out of the drive, and I'm like, I'm not waiting for this guy. I can make a left and go around and go out to Dayton and make the right.
And that assumes 2 cars are backed up, but if there's more, you said 8 cars could be in line at a time. If there's several more, are people stuck? Are people kind of turning around in that side of the parking lot next to Dayton Road? Is that what's expected to happen?
No, I don't follow. What do you?
I'm just concerned that people who are impatient, who are behind maybe 5 cars, would find other ways back up where they're not supposed to, or turn around incorrectly so that they could exit out that Dayton Road, because they will be highly motivated to want to get out. So.
Oh, you're saying if there were for some reason 5 cars here?
Yeah.
Like I said, the queue lengths show that would not be the case. Most would be 2, maybe 3. Could you physically, if nobody was parked here, I guess you physically could make that U-turn and go back out. I mean, you'd be going against the flow of traffic, but it's physically possible, I suppose. I mean, anything could physically be possible.
During your traffic study, how many vehicles tried to pass on the right when there was a vehicle attempting to turn left onto Dayton or a similar side street off of Speedwell? And was that a safety hazard that was assessed during the study?
You mean somebody bypassing somebody waiting in left? We don't count that specifically, but yeah, it happens. When you have the width, it happens.
It happened. Did you personally ever try to cross Speedwell during the peak hours during the traffic study time?
Yeah.
On foot?
On foot?
Yeah.
I didn't. No, I stood out there, but I didn't walk across the street. I've driven around the neighborhood.
But were my children across the street? I'm sorry.
I've driven around the neighborhood countless times and made the left. Did I ever actually physically walk across the sidewalk? I don't know. I didn't.
Okay, thank you.
I would have grabbed the little flag though if I did.
Hi, Laurie Cama, 12 Lindenbury Lane.
Laurie, L-O-R-I?
Laurie Cama. 12 Lindenbury Lane. My question relates to the information you provided about the traffic study you did and the counts and peak times, etc. I noticed they were done in September, and I don't know if you know, but we have a premier Central Park sports complex that happens during the year where anywhere from 15 to 20 schools from around the area will come in, either on a weeknight or on a Saturday for an event, and then exit Hanover Avenue and turn onto Speedwell either way to go back to their districts. My question is, to go back to their districts, sorry. At the time you're doing the study in September, these events do you know if any events were happening at the Central Park complex?
I don't. We did our initial counts in May, and then we did the
Also,
counts in September.
yeah. Also, sports teams.
Yeah, we did our initial counts in May, and we did the gap study in September. I don't know if there was anything going on
Okay, so,
And again, he wasn't done.
I'm sorry.
All right, yes, your next question, but please try to.
I was going to say, in all likelihood, school events were not in session, and a lot of these regional tournaments were not happening at that time on the weeknights or Saturdays at the time we did the study. So I wonder if there's a chance to redo your study at a time when we have those sporting events going on at Central Park, because the amount of not only school buses traveling from around the region, anywhere from 15 to 20 schools will come to these, plus just hundreds of spectators in cars. So if McDonald's is there, I expect that some will try to head into the drive-thru, and I think those volumes should be looked at, so perhaps it can be redone to look at those times and additional volumes that happen fairly frequently during the sports seasons.
Well, you said it yourself, the more of the traffic during those times, the more of the customers from McDonald's would already be there. There are already those people. So.
No, I'm saying the traffic, the gaps you studied are not accurate if they're not looking at peak times on a weeknight when traffic is exiting from Central Park many times a year, or on Saturdays when traffic and cars are exiting and school buses exiting from that Central Park complex.
Right, I understand, and there's all sorts of variations. I could go do this study tomorrow and find less gaps. I could go do it a week from now and find twice as many.
Okay.
You're looking for you want to just make sure that on a typical weekday that it works, and by capacity analysis, gap study, and queuing analysis.
I understand. So the group here can think about that, just because of those volumes that we all experience and safety issues. The other point I wanted to make is you mentioned, I know that deliveries happen during off-peak hours, so between, like after breakfast, between breakfast and lunch, or between lunch and dinner. With the exit driveway from Borough School being just diagonally across the street from Dayton, where the truck will be blocking traffic, I just wonder if you've taken into consideration coordinating with the town for school end times to not pick a 3 p.m. Time for a delivery to come, because that does fall between lunch and dinner. And also if there's a delayed opening or a half day or something where deliveries could potentially cause a backup of traffic and school buses and danger to a high volume of pedestrians and buses coming out of the school.
What did you mean by the truck blocking the truck? What truck?
Well, I'm saying pulling out from Dayton onto Speedwell.
Truck.
But at the same time, diagonally across the street is the exit lanes with buses coming out of the Borough parking lot in 2 different directions, as well as parent traffic and pedestrians. That's all. So it's just some equally large vehicles coming out to the road around the same time. So just communication with the town is really the point there, whether that could happen to ensure that we don't have those events happening simultaneously.
That I don't know how McDonald's communicates the deliveries, but I can tell you that the rules of the road would apply. If that truck is coming out at the same time as the buses, they would have to yield to the buses. It's one truck. It's there and it's gone.
It's a large
This
truck
isn't
and
a
it's a
warehouse.
small road. I understand, and there's a ton of kids, of walkers. And the pedestrian, the crosswalk that's to the left that has the flashing lights, that's not happening to the right, which is where the bus is and potentially the truck is turning. So, all right, thank you.
Excuse me just a minute. It's a little after 11. We're just going to keep going. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks, Tom. Exciting stuff. Yeah, thanks.
But I think it's disrespectful, just so you know, that Mr. Welch is out there waiting for everyone. We're all gonna be here again soon.
For the record, Josh Shroeder, on behalf of that.
Okay, absolutely, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, Jill Cecere, 11 Dayton Road. My first question is the tractor trailer making a right out of Dayton. I believe the engineer had said that it would probably have to go into the other lane. Was this do not lock the box recommended by the police because of the tractor trailer
I don't think so. I mean, you'd have to ask the police officer.
It wasn't like
He didn't say.
It's too late, I can't take people without.
Yes, I don't know what his intention was. I assume just so queues don't block it. I don't know that the tractor trailer factored into it, but I can't say that for sure. I don't know what his thinking was.
I could ask, I guess it's Chief Gorski, is he one that?
Yeah.
Okay. The traffic study, I'm just learning about this, I don't know anything about traffic studies, but, so it wasn't like a traffic study throughout the day and then you decided what the peak hours were? It was, you just did a study during what? Someone told you the peak hours were? Or is it an all-day study and then you extracted that information and said these are the peak hours?
We know from, the billions of traffic studies that have been done over the past 50 years when the peak time periods are, and that's what the ITE data is. So it's rush hour. It's when people commute to and from work. So those are the time periods that we always do.
So there was no studies during all those other hours in between?
No.
Because,
But again,
as someone said earlier, 2:30, 3 o'clock, you would think you're sitting in rush hour traffic in Steele Avenue, so.
that may be, but at that time McDonald's is doing less. Again, we're looking at the worst case hours, knowing that every other hour of the day won't be as bad.
I'm also not a traffic expert, but I have lived on Dayton Road for 32 years. And I can tell you, making a left-hand turn out of that road is not a 7-second gap. At best, maybe 1 to 2 minutes sometimes, and there's been longer to make a left-hand turn. So I don't know where that 7-second gap comes from.
I can explain. It's not the amount of time. The amount of time it takes is that level of service number. The gap is the distance between a car passing and then the next car. So what this industry standard says is that you won't make a left until there's 7 seconds of free traffic.
And then
Which,
Please wait.
which, like I said, in New Jersey, if you're waiting for a 7-second gap, you're gonna have some angry people behind you. We're used to having smaller gaps, so that 7 seconds is conservative. It's two different things. The gap between traffic on Speedwell is one thing, and what you're talking about is the time it takes to wait for one of those gaps.
Is there a study on how long it takes to make that turn?
Yeah,
Wait?
that's what my traffic study is, yes.
And what would the typical wait in your study?
The average time, now sometimes it might take 2 minutes, and I agree, I've done it plenty of times where I've sat there and it's been a while, and I've also pulled up and looked left, right, and gone in the peak hours. That's why we do the gap study. But the average delay coming out of Dayton is, it's level service D, 34 seconds. Average. So if one person takes 2 minutes and one person takes 10 seconds, the average would be in the middle, so that's.
And that's during peak, you're thinking, 34 seconds?
Average.
Okay, well, you're the expert, but I feel like I'm an expert in my own way. Okay. But you're making that left, and the crosswalk was moved to the northern side. And that, I believe, was mentioned at the last meeting to accommodate the entrance and exit for McDonald's. But now, making that left in that 7-second gap is putting any pedestrians into a more dangerous situation if they're in that crosswalk crossing Steele Avenue. Because we're gonna take our, chance when we can get it, especially during, peak hours. So I'm not quite sure if, the DOT agreed with that movement of the crosswalk in the whole picture, or was it, yes, that would be better for the entrance and exit on Steele Avenue for McDonald's?
Oh, would they have asked it to be moved just in general? I don't know.
Right,
Sure,
I would believe it would never be moved unless McDonald's, but I was just curious if this was a suggestion from the DOT to accommodate the entrance and exit of McDonald's, or a better overall flow
It was a suggestion from Morris Plains to do that. We asked DOT if it was okay, and they agreed that it made sense. You wanna space that crossing between the McDonald's driveway and Dayton Road the best you can, so it makes sense on the other side of the road. It's
Okay,
worse
so
now.
so it is to accommodate the McDonald's entrance and exit. That's why I was just curious, because I do feel like it's going to make it more dangerous for pedestrians crossing.
But there's a driveway now that's much closer than Dayton Road to that crosswalk, so we're making it better.
But they
But
don't
because
have
of where the
seven-
McDonald's,
One second, you stop the.
I'm sorry.
because of where the McDonald's driveway is, that it makes more sense on the other side. If we put the McDonald's driveway right next to Dayton Road, which would not be a good design, then you'd flip the crosswalk. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It's just
No.
a spacing.
I understand that, but apples and oranges, 700 to 800 vehicles or 710 vehicles per day entering and exit is nothing compared to what is existing right now. Okay, the delivery truck in the back. It was mentioned there's no crosswalks in the back. How is the deliveries made? Is it just people walking the stuff over through the drive-through lanes?
Yeah, I think they have
With no
a
crosswalk?
dolly of some sort.
Okay, so and they're gonna be for 30 to 40 minutes going back and forth, making, and there's no safety precautions or crosswalks put in.
No,
Just-
people, it's parking. They're not crossing the road, it's parking.
But they're crossing a double drive-through.
Yes.
Right.
So what do they need a crosswalk? I mean, you walk in the parking lot all the time. How do you go to the grocery store?
I don't walk in between cars in drive-through lanes. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that, but the garbage
They're
truck
stopped
was never
moving
mentioned.
very slow.
There was never even mentioned the garbage truck. So if a garbage truck comes in, obviously it'll make a front move or whatever, picks it up, and then it has to back up. So it's backing up in order to then turn to exit. So it's backing up into cars that are possibly coming into the parking lot.
Yeah, just like every other front-loading garbage truck in every commercial development I've ever seen. Yes.
Okay, and then, you mentioned maybe my eyes are playing tricks on me, I don't understand. There is space, I see, for a car to get past. If that delivery truck is like right up against the dumpster's cement base or whatever that is. If they're not right up against it, it only looks like there's maybe a foot or two of wiggle room.
Well, there's more. This is just striping. We're showing it outside of the drive-through lane. Realistically, a car, there's a lot more space. And this truck is, like I said, it's the depiction of like the worst case truck. They're really not quite
Right,
this
but
way.
we already said that McDonald's uses the full-size tractor trailer, so I would assume that is the worst case.
Well, it works at 13,000 on the McDonald's, I'm sure it works.
Okay. And then the employee parking would be back there because they're gonna be blocked, and thank you, I guess, to have them up against the residential. And they'll be locked in, so hopefully their shifts aren't over. And the only other question, it's not towards traffic, but what other experts will we present?
We'll have a planner after this witness, and then we'll conclude our case.
Okay, so there's no environmental, we've never rethought that?
No.
So 700 to 800 cars a day next to a residential neighborhood, emissions, noise from the cars, nothing of that's taken into consideration.
We abide by all state and local regulations on that.
Is it up to me?
You got a big stack of paper there.
People here in the audience would like for this meeting to get over.
I would like to do this one, please.
Pardon me?
We all want to go home.
Okay.
Well, we have questions for next time.
When's the next meeting?
Okay.
Next meeting is on Monday, regular schedule. It's gonna be here, Monday, the 18th, at 7:30. That is right. Same building, same room.
Just so you know, the notice will be on the website, okay? The agenda and notice will be on the website for the November 18th meeting.